Hey guys, tonight, we're stepping back through time, quietly slipping into your old, soaked boots. You're weaving through the narrow alleys of Victorian London, where the hazy glow of gas lamps barely cuts through the thick fog, and each wet cobblestone beneath your feet seems to whisper something cold and unsettling. The air is heavy with the smell of smoke, rotting trash, and thin, lukewarm gruel spilling from a dented pot on a street corner. Every step lands with a soft, squishy sound from socks long since soaked through, and the damp petticoat clinging to your legs feels as if it's trying to drag you down into the deepest depths of quiet hardship. But before we wander further into that cold, decaying, and vividly alive portrait, if you truly feel you belong to these strange fragments of history, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, only if you truly want to journey with this tiny time machine. And if you can, leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from, and what time it is there. There's something quietly beautiful about imagining a stranger on the other side of the world, in the middle of the night, listening to these old stories along with me. Now then. Dim the lights. If you have a fan, turn it on low, a bit of background noise never hurts. Pull your blanket tighter if the air's turning cold. Take a long, deep breath. And together, we'll slip into the night. You were thrown out of the lodging house 2 nights ago for owing 3 days' rent. The few belongings you had, if they could even be called possessions, have likely been sold off cheap or scattered who knows where by now. You stand in the alley, lost in the smoke and your own quiet desperation. Across the way, there's a faint, flickering red glow in a window. A silhouette leans there, a woman dressed in bold fabrics, a feather in her tilted hat, and the kind of practiced stillness that comes from watching the street too long. One arched brow lifts as she looks your way, not surprised, not exactly interested, but alert to the shape of your need. You hesitate, but then you knock. The door gives under your hand. You step inside. You don't realize it yet, but this moment will mark the beginning of something. You've just crossed the threshold of your first brothel. You don't come in through a grand doorway flanked by gas lamps and velvet drapes. Nothing about this place is romantic in the way of novels. Instead, you slide through a narrow side gate with rusting iron and hinges that squeal in protest. You shuffle past a stretch of alley where someone is quite possibly relieving themselves just a few feet away from a mutt curled against a brick wall, shivering in its sleep. This is the neighborhood. This is what welcomes you. The reality of Victorian London is a far cry from the idealized world of glossy period dramas. There is no golden sunlight here, only soot, fog, and cold that never lifts. It smells of rot, of mildew, of human waste and horse dung in desperation. Here, you are not the protagonist of a romance. You are a footnote. You are the subject of someone else's whispered warning. Inside the house, the parlor is lit with gaslight that buzzes softly, casting shadows that stretch and ripple along curling wallpaper. Perfume tries and fails to mask the other smells: smoke, sweat, mildew, and something faintly metallic. There's a cough from upstairs. It's dry, persistent, and entirely unacknowledged by those around you. The madam stands in the doorway, watching. Her gaze slides over you like a measuring tape. She sizes you up, not unkindly, but certainly without warmth. She has seen too many girls come through her door with the same hollow eyes and trembling hands. She knows your type. And she knows you will not be the last. You have a name? She asks, her voice gravelly but calm. She doesn't pick up a pen. She doesn't gesture toward a ledger. She asks because she's supposed to, not because she expects truth. You tell her something. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it belongs to someone you once wanted to be. She follows with another question. Can you read? The answer you give is a lie. You say yes, hoping it makes you sound more useful, more deserving of a place here. She doesn't challenge you. She just shrugs as she strikes a match and lights a thin cigarette, the kind that clings to her lips more than she clutches it. Don't matter much, she says, waving the smoke away as though brushing off your little fiction. You'll learn what you need. She calls the other girls my doves. The nickname sounds sweet at first, almost nurturing. Until you hear it again on Sunday, when she tosses a limp pigeon into a pot of stew and uses the same word without irony. You understand then. Words here are fluid. Affection is rationed. Your first evening starts with a bundle of clothing handed over in silence. It isn't new. It isn't clean. But it's intact, patched and stitched with someone's care. You're told which rooms to avoid, rooms where clients are already waiting, or where the wallpaper peels too far from the damp walls. You're shown the privy out back. The floorboards groan when you walk near it. Don't use it after dark, someone mutters. Rats'll chew your hems. There's supposed to be a candle lit beside the outhouse each evening at dusk. No one remembers to do it. Or perhaps they do remember, and choose not to. There is debate among scholars and historians about what brothels in Victorian England were really like. Some argue they were, in their own rough way, safe havens. Others insist they were simply another form of suffering, dressed in velvet. The truth you come to understand is that both things are correct. This place feeds you. You don't sleep out in the cold. You are surrounded by women who speak in sharp, fast sentences, who can mend a torn bodice in the dark, who know how to deflect an angry drunk with nothing more than a glance, and who can warm water over a sputtering flame like they've done it 100 times before, because they have. You're told to stay downstairs your first night. Watch. Learn. Keep your voice to yourself. So you sit. You pick a velvet armchair with a broken leg. It leans slightly, so you brace your body to one side, trying not to slide. The cushion smells like 100 people have passed through it. You sip watered-down sherry from a cloudy glass. The taste sits on your tongue like old pennies and wilted roses. The first client of the night arrives wearing gloves and carrying a cane. You suspect both are for effect rather than necessity. He smells of cloves and waxed mustache. He asks for Ruby. She left last week. No one offers an explanation, and you quickly learn not to ask where anyone has gone. The second client is younger, fidgeting with his coat buttons. Eyes flickering from corner to corner. He avoids your gaze. His voice is quiet when he asks your price. You freeze. You don't know what to say. The madam steps in, her head tilting in a way that says you're off limits. Not tonight, she murmurs with a dismissive flick of her hand. She steers him toward a blonde girl named Nellie, who puts on a smile wide enough to tear at the corners of her mouth. It does. You see the small split. You see the blood bead. She doesn't flinch. Neither do you. Later, one of the older girls, maybe out of kindness, maybe out of boredom, takes you upstairs to show you the working rooms. The wallpaper is faded and the colors long dulled. One mirror, long and slightly warped, has a crack that distorts your reflection in unsettling ways. There's a painting on the wall, some shepherdess in a pastel dress, holding a lamb. She looks far too calm for the company she keeps now. The bed has clean sheets, at least by the standards of this place. Meaning, they aren't soiled, just stained by time. There's an art to creating the right mood, the girl tells you. Warmth can be faked. Candles help. Draping orange or red fabric over the lampshade works wonders for atmosphere. It softens everything. Turns flaws into mysteries. Turns you into something less real, and therefore more desirable. Here's a bit of odd history for you. Some brothels in Victorian London used colored panes of glass to create mood lighting. Long before LEDs, before light dimmers and curated ambience, they painted the glow into the room. You imagine a red glow washing over the parlor like the ghost of a holiday window. A strange kind of cheer in a place where cheer is a performance. By morning, you've done nothing but observe. You've watched. You've listened. You've scrubbed a staircase with a rag soaked in vinegar. Your arms ache from the effort. Your mind spins with fragments you don't know how to piece together. Your stomach, for once, is full. You fall asleep curled on a cot in the laundry room, beneath a threadbare blanket, next to a wicker basket of unwashed linens. You dream of something distant. Maybe it's the countryside. Maybe it's a family you barely remember. Maybe it's just silence, and outside the door, in the hallway beyond the laundry room, someone is still coughing. Quiet. Constant. And never addressed. You wake stiff, sore, and clammy, the kind of cold sweat that clings under your arms and gathers behind your knees. You're still wearing half your borrowed dress, the bodice half unlaced and twisted, the fabric wrinkled and creased where you shifted restlessly in your sleep. The stone wall you leaned against during the night has left a dull, aching imprint on the back of your neck, which now feels like it has been turned at the wrong angle for far too long. Your head had lolled to one side at some point, and now a persistent crick throbs with each movement. Your ankles ache too, the tops of your feet marked with harsh red creases left by your boots, which you had been too tired to take off the night before. They'd pinched you all night, leaving behind their shape like a stamp of poverty. The window above your cot is covered in a thin film of grime and soot, blurring the world outside into a grayish blur. It lets in only the weakest suggestion of daylight. Not enough to guess the hour with any certainty, but enough to know it's morning, and probably too early to be anything pleasant. Somewhere below, down a flight of narrow, creaking stairs, you hear the distant clatter of dishes and the heavy thump of a kettle being moved on a stove. You guess, based on that rhythm, that it's sometime between too early to speak aloud and not yet your turn for the bath, but you already suspect the tub will be lukewarm and cloudy by the time you're allowed near it. You pull yourself upright and shuffle down to the kitchen, dragging your feet in that quiet, cautious way that says you don't yet know if your presence will be welcome. The air smells of weak tea, burnt toast, and yesterday's grease. At the stove, one of the older girls stands pouring hot water into chipped mugs. Her face is lined but not unkind, her eyes ringed with smudged coal eyeliner from the night before. Rosie, you think her name is. Or something close to it. When she sees you, she doesn't smile, but she doesn't sneer either. She wordlessly hands you a mug. The handle is cracked and the rim is chipped. The liquid inside is lukewarm and vaguely brown, the consistency and color of ditch water. You drink it anyway. You don't ask for sugar. You don't expect milk. The warmth is enough. It softens your insides just enough to keep you standing. Today, you are told, is the day you get your rules. There is no ceremony. No meeting. No moment of clarity. The madam does not sit across from you like a kindly governess with a folded list and an encouraging smile. There is no gentle introduction, no patient explanation. Instead, you are given your rules in bits and pieces. Rattled off between mouthfuls during breakfast as she paces between the table and the ledger balanced on her arm. She eats with one hand, a stale roll torn into bite-sized pieces, and holds her tally book in the other, marking columns with a blunt pencil as she speaks. Rule 1, she begins, her mouth half full. She doesn't pause or look in your direction. You don't give it away for free. Not to friends. Not to priests. Not to poets who think your eyes look like frost on glass. Every single one of them pays. No exceptions. You nod, unsure if she notices. Rule 2, she continues, already flipping a page in her book. No drinking while you're working. You show up drunk when a client arrives. I dock your cut. You throw up on the sheets, I dock it again, double. Simple math. That one feels reasonable, you suppose. You file it away. Rule 3. No stealing from the clients. I don't care what you think they deserve. If they notice, they complain. If they complain, the police come sniffing around. And if they come sniffing, I don't care whose fault it is. You'll be out on the street before they step through the door. She pauses, then adds, you steal from each other, that's your business. I won't see it. I won't hear it. You glance sideways at Rosie, who is now sitting quietly at the far end of the kitchen. She cradles her mug like it's the last warm thing she'll ever touch. Her expression gives away nothing. You wonder if she's been stolen from, or if she's the one who's done the stealing, and Rule 4, Madam finishes, tossing the last bite of her roll into her mouth. If a girl runs off with a client, don't expect her room to stay empty for long. People get replaced. Quickly. You might laugh at that if it didn't sound so close to a warning dressed up as a joke. Your assignment for the day is made clear shortly after. You won't be working yet, not officially. For now, your job is to tidy the rooms. Strip linens. Wipe the grime from mirrors. Refluff pillows that don't fluff anymore. It's menial work, but it earns you time. Time to learn. Time to adjust. Time before the curtain rises on your debut performance. The madam insists on presentation, as she calls it, and in her opinion, you aren't quite ready. Your hair, she says, needs trimming. Your corset must be reboned to give your figure the proper shape. Your manners, she notes, must be polished until they gleam like silver on a holiday table. You aren't sure if this delay is an act of mercy or a marketing strategy. You're not sure which would be worse. Later that day, you're taken aside by one of the seamstresses, a soft-voiced girl named Eliza with nimble fingers and a slow, deliberate way of moving. Her voice is thick and warm, the kind of tone you might find in a velvet pouch. She shows you your outfit, your assigned costume. A faded teal corset with delicate embroidery that has long lost its color. A bustle pad, lumpy and shapeless, that might very well be stuffed with rags or cast-off socks. A lace choker, yellowed slightly with age, that smells faintly of cloves and old perfume. Don't pout, Eliza says gently, smiling with the corners of her mouth more than her eyes. It all looks better by candlelight. You'll see. You begin to learn, very quickly, that appearance is not just everything. It is the entire business. But appearances here are stitched together with threadbare illusion. Your corset does not fit properly, so they pad it. Your stockings are uneven in length, so you fold the excess underneath and walk carefully. Your shoes are cracked and worn, so you learn to stand in the spots where the rug covers the worst of the floorboards. From a distance, you shimmer. That is the goal, you're taught more. No biting your lip, no picking at your nails, no crossing your arms like you're guarding a tavern door. Walk with grace. Glide, even when your back aches. Sit tall, even when your legs tremble. Laugh, but never too loudly. Speak softly, smile often. And never, under any circumstance, talk about the price. That is Madam's role. You are not selling a service, she says. You are selling a fantasy. The difference is subtle, but essential. And apparently, non-negotiable. Historians today often observe that many Victorian brothels were run with a structure more rigid than some factories. They functioned on systems of fines, rotating schedules, assigned chores, and a discipline that rivaled military routine. Whether that structure was about professionalism or control remains a subject of debate. But in here, the hierarchy is ironclad. Your role, above all else, is to uphold the house's image, not just the rooms. Not just the service. The entire feeling. The sound of soft laughter drifting from behind doors. The glow of candlelight flickering through beaded curtains. The chime of glass against glass. The whisper of silk brushing the stair rail. Even if you are bone-tired or hiding a bruise. Even if you are hungry or heartsick or hungover. The illusion must remain pristine. If even one detail breaks, a client might take his coin and curiosity elsewhere, to the rival house just 2 streets away, Rosie offers you your first piece of practical wisdom later that evening. Keep a sponge soaked in vinegar and rosewater in your drawer. Dab it on your neck when you start to sweat. Smells fresh, even when you ain't. She also teaches you how to wash yourself with nothing more than a cold cloth, a bar of soap the size of a matchbox, and the right mindset. You can do a lot with a little, she says. But don't expect anyone to thank you for it. You notice that Rosie rarely smiles. Her kindness is quiet, and her hope, if she still has any, is buried too deep to reach. Here's a curious detail from the period. Some brothels, particularly the higher-end ones, actually gave their girls lessons in French, not enough to speak fluently, but just enough to drop a mais oui or a mon cher in conversation. It gave clients the illusion of sophistication, of worldliness. You try it out quietly to yourself. The result sounds like someone choking politely on a dry biscuit. That night, you're still not allowed to work. But you're told to observe. Again. This time, from the top of the stairs, seated on the landing like a forgotten statue. You watch Nellie, bright as ever, entertain a nervous widower whose hands tremble and whose hair is slicked with too much pomade. You watch Rosie escort a sailor upstairs. He walks with a limp and carries an accordion slung over his back like a second spine. You hear laughter from one room, coughing from another. Something heavy crashes to the floor in the hallway. No one flinches. No one checks. When it's all over, when the doors are closed and the lamps are dimmed, the women gather around a low table in the corner of the parlor. A single candle burns down to a wax puddle. Eliza mends a stocking with careful stitches. Rosie rubs her sore feet with liniment, grimacing as she works. Nellie pulls feathers out of her hair one at a time and tosses them into the fireplace with theatrical flair. You ask how long they've been here. You expect a number. You get none. Eliza just shrugs with one shoulder and says, long enough to know not to answer that. You return to your cot. The laundry room is cold and smells like damp linen and bleach. The rules repeat in your mind like a melody you're too tired to forget. No freebies. No lip. No loyalty. No escape. It isn't your turn yet, but it will be. Soon, and you drift off thinking of another version of yourself. One with silk gloves that actually fit. One whose shoes didn't blister. One who had somewhere else to go, one who had choices. You wake to the quiet sound of someone sobbing softly in the hallway, their voice thin and trembling like a loose thread being pulled through fabric. You lie still for a moment, muscles tense, breath held at the surface of your chest. Your heart ticks faster, nervous and steady, like a clock that knows it's running late but isn't sure for what. You don't move. You don't call out. It's not your business. In truth, nothing here really is. Not the laughter behind closed doors, not the coughing above you in the rafters, and certainly not the muffled grief that leaks through the wallpaper like cold air seeping through a cracked and drafty window. The sobbing fades before you've made up your mind whether to check. You roll over, slowly, staring up at the ceiling where a patch of brown water damage blooms like a quiet stain on the sky. It's just another morning in the house. Today is the day. You've been cleaned with a sponge, scrubbed down until your skin glowed raw pink beneath the vinegar, curled with heated tongs that singed a few strands, and squeezed into the unforgiving embrace of corsetry. You've been powdered, perfumed, and puffed. You are now, according to Madam, ready to be seen. Today, your instructions are simple in theory. You are to sit in the front parlor and look lovely. That is all. No small task, as it turns out, once you actually attempt it. The corset is the first trial. It is less of a garment and more of a declaration of war between your ribs and the expectations of beauty. It takes 3 women to get you into it, 2 pulling with steady, practiced force and 1 bracing her knee against your lower back for leverage. There are 2 grunts and 1 mild curse, muffled into a sleeve. By the end of it, you feel like a doll being assembled by committee. The air in your lungs is suddenly a rare commodity, rationed out one shallow breath at a time. Every inhale is a negotiation, every exhale a sacrifice. Sitting becomes a matter of geometry. You must angle your hips just so, lift your chin at precisely the right degree, and hold your posture with the spine of a governess and the quiet restraint of a debutante waiting to be summoned. You make the mistake of sitting too quickly once and release a sound that is somewhere between a gasp and a high-pitched squeak. Rosie, ever observant, lets out a cackle that's half amusement, half sympathy. You'll learn to move like a cat, she says, dabbing powder across your cheeks with a puff that smells faintly of lavender mixed with stale flour. Graceful and unpredictable. That's the trick. The dress they've selected for you is tight through the bodice, pressing you into shape, then flaring wide at the hips to exaggerate curves you don't quite possess. It's trimmed with delicate lace that looks just a bit too bright, too clean, too new for the rest of the garment. Probably replaced only at the hem where it's most visible. Still, when you glance in the mirror, cracked at the edge and clouded with age, you pause. With the light hitting just right, with the shadows soft and the distance generous, you resemble the painted girls on old cigarette cards. Almost. The likeness is close, though your eyes remain too sharp, too aware. They haven't dulled into vacancy. Not yet. From the front hallway comes a chime. A bell, delicate and high, rings from the door. You tense without meaning to. The sound is small but precise, and it travels quickly. Like cold metal against the spine, relax, Eliza murmurs beside you as she pins a curl behind your ear with a gesture that is more careful than affectionate. That bell isn't for judgment. It's just looking for company. You nod. You try to breathe normally. You try to remember that this is exactly what you've prepared for. You glide into the front parlor, or rather, you attempt to glide but settle for a sort of stylized shuffle that feels poised but not quite natural. You cross the threshold into a room heavy with scent, tobacco, old perfume, and the lingering memory of dozens of evenings just like this one. You take your place on a fainting couch with worn cushions and carved wood legs, upholstered in faded velvet the color of rusted roses. The fabric smells faintly of stale powder and something older, like mothballs and memory. Clients begin to arrive, slowly, one by one. They come in with uneven footsteps, stiff hats, and nervous glances. Some are loud. Some say nothing. Each is a different case study in posture. Scent, and slow decay. You do not know their names. You probably never will. But you start cataloging them anyway, silently giving them titles in your head like chapters in a strange, unwelcome novel. The sniffer. The laugher. The one who doesn't blink. The one who talks too much. The one who doesn't talk at all. You are not chosen at first. Nellie, of course, draws them like moths to a gaslit flame. She moves with calculated charm, flirting with the ease of someone who has perfected the balance between invitation and distance. She leans forward just enough to be provocative, but not enough to be read as eager. Her laugh is soft and always a little delayed, as though she's deciding whether or not your joke deserves it. It's effective. She sparkles, but not too brightly. You watch her carefully, absorbing technique. The madam doesn't hover. She doesn't patrol or raise her voice. But she sees everything. You feel her presence like pressure, a quiet weight at your back. Her gaze is the tug of a stay cord, invisible but unrelenting. Eventually, someone chooses you. He is tall and well-dressed, his appearance impeccable in the manner of someone who dresses more for control than fashion. His boots are polished to a mirror shine. His collar is starched and pressed with precision. He carries the scent of sandalwood and restraint. His expression is unreadable, and his smile feels wrong, too careful, too rehearsed, and far too detached from his eyes. He extends his arm as if inviting you to a formal ball. You take it with the practiced grace of someone pretending this is just another dance, even as your heels click against the warped floorboards and your fingers tremble slightly against his sleeve. The stairs creak as you ascend together, the wallpaper on the landing peeling away in curls like forgotten parchment. In the room, he hands you a coin. Heavy, gold-toned. A sovereign. You accept it without meeting his eyes, pocketing it with a composure you do not feel, careful not to let your gratitude show too quickly, and then comes the moment you had not truly prepared for. It is not the act itself that startles you, but the shift. The internal turn. The part where your mouth smiles without feeling. Where your fingers touch his hand like it matters. Where your voice rises to a giggle on cue, soft and well-timed. Where you tell a lie with every glance, and do it so smoothly that even you almost believe it. Inside, some part of you floats away. That piece of yourself hovers near the ceiling, watching like a ghost with her arms folded. Unmoved by the performance, historians still argue about what level of control women in your position really had. Some say these girls were performers, curating personalities like gowns. Others claim it was all mask and survival instinct, nothing more. You don't dwell on the theory. You don't have the luxury of debate. You just do the work. When it is over, he dresses quickly and leaves without a word, as they so often do. You clean yourself with vinegar water, the cold sting a reminder that you are back inside your body. You apply fresh rouge to your cheeks, straightening the lace at your collar, and tug your bodice back into place. You smooth your hair in the cracked mirror. Then you go downstairs. Eliza looks up from her stitching and hands you a biscuit. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. You take it, you are one of them now. The next few hours blur into one long sequence of faces and voices. You are admired with hollow compliments. You are ignored with practiced disinterest. You are kissed with varying degrees of sincerity. You are tipped, pinched, complimented, and overlooked in equal and exhausting measure. A man tells you your hair reminds him of his dead wife. Another asks whether you enjoy horseback riding, only to fall asleep halfway through the conversation. During a brief pause, Rosie offers you a flask from her garter. For the nerves, she says simply, holding it out. The liquid inside smells faintly of licorice, smoke, and something bitter beneath the sweetness. Regret, perhaps. You take a sip. You don't ask what's in it. You know better than to ask questions that might get honest answers. You pick up other tricks too. The proper application of rouge, a dab for the cheeks, a dusting for the nipples. Rice powder for the nose to keep shine away. A bit of spit dabbed onto the lashes for that glossy, wide-eyed glimmer. Some girls take it further, adding a touch of belladonna to their eyes. It makes the pupils dilate. Makes them look innocent. Dreamy. One girl tried too much and spent the better part of a month walking into furniture. Half blind. No one really talked about it. By midnight, your feet are throbbing in your too tight shoes. Your back aches from the corset's grip. Your stomach twists from hunger and nerves. Your smile feels like it has been carved into your face. Still, when the bell rings again, you go. One more time. One more client, this one is older. Quieter. His presence is less demanding. He carries the stillness of someone who has already been through whatever broke the rest of them. He asks your name and actually listens to your answer, even though it's borrowed. He pays twice the normal rate and stays only a short while. When he leaves, he presses a small, wrapped candy into your palm. You do not unwrap it until you are in bed. It is toffee. You eat it slowly, letting the sugar dissolve on your tongue. You do not cry. You are too tired. That night, you fall asleep with your corset half unlaced, rouge still on your cheeks, perfume still clinging to your collar. You smell of lavender, sweat, old dust, and something else. Something unnamed. Something that will follow you, no matter where you go, you dream of mirrors. Of rouge and red velvet chairs. In your dream, you are always smiling, always smiling. You wake before the sun has even begun to lighten the sky, in that inky blue hour when the streets are still silent and even the birds hesitate. The room is dim, air stale with the smells of powder and sweat, and your body is sore in all the wrong places. Your back aches in sharp lines from where the corset dug into your ribs, your feet throb from the endless dancing, and your throat is raw from hours spent pretending to laugh at jokes that barely passed for words. Your mouth is dry. Your lips feel chapped from smiling too hard. You stretch on your narrow cot, joints stiff and crackling like kindling, and something in your shoulder pops unexpectedly. Maybe it's a rib, maybe it's your spirit giving up. It's honestly hard to tell. The room is quiet. Dust dances in the weak light sneaking between the slats of the window shutters. There is no warmth to be found in the thin blanket you kicked off hours ago. Everything aches. Your muscles feel used, your skin tender where hands had pressed too tightly or lingered too long. You turn your head on the thin pillow and stare at the ceiling. The familiar water stain looks a little bigger this morning, like it has absorbed some small piece of you in the night. Downstairs, the gaslight still flickers faintly in the front room, casting an unsteady glow over the wallpaper and making the shadows move in strange, sleepy shapes. Rosie is already awake. Of course. She's always awake before you. Her hair is pinned back with care, her face dusted with just enough powder to hide the exhaustion that never truly fades. She leans lazily against the doorframe, cigarette between her fingers, the end glowing orange with each drag. Smoke curls around her face in lazy spirals. She gives you a sideways glance and offers a smile that is hard to interpret. It settles somewhere between congratulations and you poor unfortunate thing. First night's always a blur, she murmurs, voice scratchy and low. Wait until the fifth. You nod without speaking. There's nothing useful to say. You shuffle toward the washroom with the uneven gait of someone twice your age. The floorboards creak beneath your bare feet. Inside, the air is sharp with cold. You splash your face with the basin water, which is icy and smells faintly of rust, like coins left too long in a drawer. The soap is a paper-thin sliver of lye, curled and cracked like a leaf caught in late autumn. It stings your skin as you rub it across your cheeks and jaw, but it does its job. The makeup comes off. So does the scent of strangers, at least mostly. You scrub harder around the eyes, trying to erase last night's version of yourself. It never fully works. By the time breakfast rolls around, oat porridge thick as paste and a boiled egg with a faintly green-tinged shell that suggests a few too many days in the pantry, you feel almost human again. Not fresh, not well-rested, but upright. Alive, just barely. And that's when you encounter what might be the worst part of this work. The part no one warns you about. Not Madam, not Rosie, not even the girls who've been here long enough to forget their real ages. The clients you dread. It isn't the loud, stumbling drunkards with wandering hands and slurred pickup lines that make your stomach twist. Nor is it the ones who cry about their dying mothers or beg you to tell them they aren't as awful as they feel. Those men, at least, are obvious. You can brace for them. You can manage them. No, the ones who crawl under your skin and stay there are the quiet ones. The polite ones. The ones who look just a little too long without blinking. The ones who smile with their teeth but never with their eyes. The ones who speak gently and call you miss as if that somehow makes them better than the rest. Today's first visitor is one of those. He walks in with the posture of a man used to going unnoticed. His waistcoat is wrinkled at the seams. His boots are worn at the heel. Ink stains blot the edge of his fingers, suggesting he works with ledgers or letters. His voice is soft and deliberate. He calls you miss like it's some kind of blessing. And then he starts asking about your real name. For 10 whole minutes, you laugh. Politely. Deflect. You ask where he's from, what he does, whether he's a morning person. Anything to steer the ship away from the rocks. But he leans in closer, like you've whispered a secret when you haven't even said a word. You remind me of my cousin, he says, and his voice drops low and strange in a way that makes your shoulders tense before you even fully process why. Your fingers tighten around your lace fan. Not because you're warm. Not for fashion. Rosie once told you to always hold something. Not for show. For defense. If you need to jab someone in the eye, best to have something sharp and sturdy in hand. You used to laugh at that advice, now, you understand it. Later, another sort comes along. This one reeks of gin and cheap hair tonic. With a poorly carved cane he taps against the floor for emphasis more than necessity. His eyes are bloodshot and watery, and his breath carries the unmistakable tang of pickled onions and disappointment. He orders you about as if you were a scullery maid and he were a lord. Complains about the mattress, mutters about the curtains. Criticizes the tea. At one point, he insists the bed sheets are too stiff, as though you're the one who sewed them by hand in your spare time. Historians love to debate whether brothels in Victorian London were places of companionship or nothing more than grim outlets for desperation, packaged neatly for profit. They speak of regulation, of moral panic, of the perceived boundaries between fantasy and necessity. But rarely, if ever, do they talk about the sheer strangeness of the clientele. The oddities. The moments that defy description. You begin to spot patterns, categories even. There are the chatterboxes who never stop speaking. There are the mute ones who just want to stare. And then there are those who want you to hold them gently, stroke their hair, and let them fall asleep on your lap without ever taking off a thing. That last group is strangely peaceful, if not especially generous when it comes to tipping. One man arrives with a battered book of poetry tucked beneath his arm. Not to gift to you. Not even to impress. He wants you to read it aloud to him, page by page, in French. You don't speak French. You fake it. He nods along anyway. Another insists you wear a bonnet and call him sir every time he breathes. One brings his own cologne and douses your wrists with it before he even learns your name. One asks you to sing. One asks you to cry. You meet a chimney sweep's apprentice with soot under his nails and eyes like bruises. He can't be more than 17. He pays in coins so light they barely make a sound when dropped into Madame's ledger box. Still, he hands them to you with reverence, like you're made of silk and crystal. You take the money. Rules are rules. In a rare quiet moment, you sit on the edge of your narrow bed and examine your feet. Blisters, red and raw, bloom across your toes like open flowers. Your arches ache. Your ankles throb. You press one palm to your calf and feel the pulse of overuse. The gaslight nearby casts a warm, deceptive glow on the mirror. You look older in it today. You look tired. And under the soft layers of paint and powder, you think you see something fragile beginning to crack. You remember something from a gossip column once, or maybe it was Rosie who said it. In the Victorian age, some people believed that your most repeated expressions would settle permanently into your face. A kind of muscle memory of emotion. Smile too long, and it becomes a mask. Laugh too often, and it becomes your truth. You wonder if your polite smile, the one you've worn like a shield all week, will become the real one. You wonder if it already has. That night, a trio of clients arrives together. Their boots stomp the floor like a parade. They are loud, red-cheeked, full of drink and false joy. Elbowing one another like overgrown schoolboys in fine wool. Their laughter is sharp and empty, bouncing against the walls like thrown coins. One of them, tall, with too many rings and not enough manners, leans in and grins. He says, "Show us the youngest girl you've got." Before you can react, before your mouth even parts to reply, Eliza materializes beside you. Calm. Efficient. Her smile is paper-thin but steady. She steers them away like a practiced hostess, not a breath wasted. You exhale silently. You owe her something for that. Maybe more than one thing. You don't forget that moment. You won't forget that sentence, later, when the house is quiet again and the gaslight hisses low. Rosie tosses a half-eaten apple core out the window and mutters into the night air, "The rich ones are always the worst. They treat you like wallpaper. Pretty to look at, easy to ignore." Madam doesn't contradict her. She just sits with her ledger at the corner table, tallying coins with a stub of pencil. She doesn't need names. She writes initials and amounts. Nothing more. You go to sleep late, arms wrapped around your pillow like it might transform into something else if you just squeeze tightly enough. A person. A memory. A possibility. You close your eyes and try to believe in tomorrow. You imagine you'll see a kind face in the crowd instead of a cruel one. You imagine someone will choose you not because you are here, not because you are painted and powdered and available, but because you are you, but tomorrow is already on the page. And you are already in the middle of it. You're woken not by footsteps, not by coughing, not by someone shouting down the hallway, but by the sound of muffled laughter. Real laughter. The kind that's unguarded and unpolished, tumbling out in bursts like rain on cobblestones. Not the painted-on giggles reserved for clients, not the practiced titters traded like currency in the parlor. This is the rare kind, the kind that doesn't cost anything. For a moment, you lie still, unsure if you've dreamt it. Then it comes again, low and rolling, and you push yourself upright. Your limbs protest as you swing your feet over the edge of the cot. You shuffle out of your room in nothing more than your shift, fabric clinging to one hip. Your hair tangled and thick, wild ropes that hang over your shoulders like seaweed pulled from a tide-pool. Your toes curl against the cold wood of the hallway floor, and as you rub the sleep from your eyes, you catch the flicker of gaslight leaking out from the parlor. Half the girls are gathered there, curled into couches and chairs like cats claiming warm spots. They're slouched and grinning, circled around a chipped deck of cards scattered across the parlor table. Rosie, naturally, holds the winning hand. She always does. She plays with the confidence of someone who has been swindled more times than she can count and now knows every trick in the book, plus a few she invented herself. Her pile of coins is growing by the minute. "Sleep well, Duchess." Nellie calls out from her place on the couch. She pats the spot beside her with a smirk that holds just the right amount of teasing. Her eyes are lined with yesterday's coal, smudged at the corners, and her hair is pinned half-heartedly in a bun that looks ready to fall apart. She looks tired but content, like someone who's learned how to carve comfort from chaos. You yawn so hard your jaw clicks. Someone, maybe Meg, maybe Eliza, hands you a stale biscuit without looking up. It's more brick than pastry, but you chew it anyway. This is how most mornings begin now. Not with ceremony. Not with grace. But with crumbs on your lap, dry mouths, aching backs, and gossip thick enough to chew, and gossip is the true breakfast. It flows more easily than tea, steaming and sharp, ladled out in whispers and wide eyes. Who's been skimming tips from the communal jar? Who's fallen into Madam's good graces this week with a well-timed smile and an extra shiny pair of boots? Which client promised to rescue a girl, to whisk her away to some invented estate with roses and freedom, only to return 2 days later with a new favorite draped on his arm like a scarf? That kind of talk. The usual brand of truth embroidered with fiction, but sometimes, tucked inside the embellishments and sarcasm, something useful slips out. Eliza leans closer to you as she fans her cards and mutters low enough that only you hear, "Inspector Barnes is due tonight. Don't take him upstairs. Just smile and offer him tea." You blink. Why? Rosie glances up from her cards and leans forward, her voice hushed. Because he doesn't come for you. He comes for her. And you know without asking who her is. She means madam. And you don't need the details spelled out. The tone is enough. The silence that follows is louder than any answer. It's your first real taste of how this house actually runs. Not the fantasy it sells. Not the corsets, the rouge, the soft lights, and whispered names. No, this is the actual engine behind the performance. The part no one sees unless they're meant to. There are rules. And then there are arrangements. The brothel runs without interruption because certain men in certain uniforms have agreed to pretend it does not exist, and in exchange, certain favors are extended, in quiet corners, behind closed doors. Historians still argue over whether these arrangements were mutual conveniences or thinly veiled coercion dressed up as structure. Some say it provided a layer of protection for the women inside. Others say it simply built a prettier cage. You are beginning to suspect the answer lives somewhere in between. One of the younger girls, Meg, has taken to scribbling in a little journal she hides beneath a loose floorboard beneath her cot. It's not a diary, not the kind with hearts or pressed flowers. It's a ledger. Names. Dates. Coins exchanged. Promises made and promises broken. She lets you peek at it once in the hush of early evening. You can't tell if she plans to blackmail someone, publish a tell-all someday, or simply wants to remember the truth in a place where everything is designed to be forgotten. You begin to understand that this house is its own kind of empire, woven together not with gold or grandeur, but with silk thread and secrets. At its center sits Madame, unshakable as ever. She wears her corsets 2 sizes too small and never lets it slow her. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't plead or threaten. She simply speaks, and people listen. Clients, girls, inspectors, tradesmen, everyone knows not to ignore her. She can ruin a man's reputation with a whispered sentence. She can pluck a girl from the edge and hand her a second chance, neatly folded and tied with ribbon. She is what you might one day become. Or what you quietly pray not to. She knows everything. Where the coin jars are hidden. Who's coughing too much to keep working? Which client is shortchanging the girls or creeping toward trouble? She knows who slips gin into their tea and who snuck out the side door last Thursday and didn't come back until morning. She never writes anything down. She doesn't have to. You start to suspect that even the wallpaper has ears. That the faded floral prints and chipped mirror frames whisper to her while she sleeps. Evenings follow a ritual now. The lamps are trimmed low, flickering just enough to cast shadows. The curtains are drawn tight against the street. Sometimes someone sits at the old pianoforte in the corner and plays a tune, not well, but just enough to sound refined, cultured, genteel. The notes hang in the air like perfume. The girls take turns, their fingers stumbling through old melodies more for effect than enjoyment. It's not about music. It's about mood. You learn to stay quiet. To watch. To listen. The real currency here isn't gold or silver. It's stories. Secrets. Things people admit in the dark when they think no one is paying attention. You begin to collect them like stones in your pocket. Tonight, a man with a cane asks Eliza to pretend she's his dead wife. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. She nods. She smiles. She hums a lullaby none of you have ever heard. When he cries, she touches his shoulder gently. He leaves 2 shillings on the table and disappears into the night fog like a ghost returned to mist. After he's gone, Eliza walks into the kitchen, still in her corset, and begins peeling potatoes for soup. The knife moves steadily. Her gaze never shifts. Men don't come here for pleasure, she says flatly, as though stating the weather. They come here for forgetting. A curious little historical fact pops into your head. In some houses, girls were taught simple palm reading. Not because anyone truly believed in fate, but because it gave the clients a reason to sit longer, talk more, stay engaged. A party trick with charm. You try it with a passing gentleman and tell him his heart is strong, his pride is heavier than his purse, and his future will be long if he stops gambling. He laughs. He tips you 6 pence. Maybe you have a gift for it. But there are stories you wish you didn't learn. One girl disappears overnight. No warning. No farewell. Her things are gone. Her bed made and cold. Her name is not spoken the next morning, and no one asks where she went. You learn quickly what silence means. You begin making your own mental notes. Not in a journal. Not in ink. But in memory. The man who taps his coins twice before handing them over. The one who always brings carnations but never speaks a word. The one who stares at your feet like they hold all the answers. You do not write these things down. You simply remember, at dinner, the cook mutters under her breath about having to stretch one scrawny chicken into 3 stews. The pot bubbles anyway. Rosie makes her usual joke about pigeon. No one laughs this time. Later, a client offers you a pipe of opium. He smiles gently, like he's offering you sleep, not sedation. You smile back and decline. Not tonight. You're not ready to blur the edges. Not yet. Maybe later, as you lie in bed, limbs heavy and thoughts heavier, you begin to recognize the house's nightly symphony. A creaking door somewhere down the hall. The distant scrape of a chair against the floorboards. A cough that rattles from upstairs. Laughter, faint and fading. The slow, rhythmic squeak of a bed frame in motion. Familiar sounds now. Like wind through branches. Like waves lapping at a forgotten shore. You hover on the edge of sleep, eyes half-lidded, breathing shallow. Not quite dreaming. Not fully awake, and in that stillness, a question rises in the dark, quiet and sharp. You wonder if anyone has ever loved you without expecting something in return. You remember what Eliza said, no one here comes for pleasure. Only forgetting. You curl into your pillow, arms wrapped tight around it. You're not ready to forget, not yet. You are brushing out your hair with the kind of slow, measured strokes that serve less to untangle than to ground you. Each pull of the brush is deliberate, rhythmic, almost meditative. The strands fall over your shoulder like silk and straw in equal measure. You count under your breath with each pass, your thoughts drifting somewhere distant, quiet. The world feels fragile in these moments, like a china cup balanced on your palm. Then the door swings open with the abruptness of a clap, and Nellie stumbles in, loud as a parade, grinning like she's just won a coin toss with the devil himself. She smells faintly of cinnamon, sweat, and something burnt. 2 bruises are blooming high across her collarbone. Dark as ripe fruit, the edges tinged with purple and green. They look painful, but she smiles wide enough to suggest it's worth it. Or at least, that it paid well enough. Got a $5, she chirps, voice bright as brass bells in a fog. She leans her shoulder into the doorframe like it owes her something. Let the bastard bite me. Nearly took my shoulder off. You freeze mid-stroke, hand tangled in your hair, brush hovering. You don't know whether to offer congratulations or fetch liniment. Maybe both. You give a small noise instead, something between a hum and a gasp. She doesn't notice. Or pretends not to. Without invitation, she flops onto your bed, limbs sprawling like she owns the mattress and everything beneath it. She stretches until her spine cracks audibly and sighs like someone settling into an old habit. That's the game, love, she says, voice softer now. Hurts less if you laugh. You're beginning to understand. The laughter in this place is not always born from joy. Sometimes it's a shield. Sometimes it's a sharp refusal to feel anything else. Sometimes it's all that's left when the paint rubs off and the perfume fades. The sound echoes down the hallways like a kind of protest song, light and sharp and stubborn. In a house like this, rivalries are inevitable. They bloom quickly, sometimes overnight, like mold on damp cloth. And just as quickly, they can dissolve into camaraderie. One moment, you and Nellie are trading daggers with your eyes over a client. The next, you're sharing the last mouthful of elderberry wine behind the linen shelf like schoolgirls keeping a secret. Rosie might lace your corset a bit too tightly just to slow you down during a busy night, but then offer you her last clove cigarette before sunrise. No one is entirely cruel. No one is entirely kind. Everyone's trying to stay afloat in the same battered boat with a dozen leaks and no oars. The madam doesn't mediate these skirmishes. She doesn't soothe bruised egos or patch up fraying alliances. She simply lets it all simmer beneath the powder and perfume, watching from her office like a queen amused by the chaos in her court. Today, the tension finds its footing over something simple: bath time. The upstairs tub is chipped, slightly slanted, and haunted by the ghosts of soaps past, but it is sacred nonetheless. Reserved for clients first and foremost, it is only open to the girls if the schedule allows. Meg, still young enough to mistake silence for permission, has slipped in early. Eliza finds out. Tempers spark. Voices rise through the thin walls. You hear the splash first, then the sharp slap of a sponge striking skin. Then a scream. Someone must have thrown the sponge. You imagine the bathwater sloshing onto the floorboards, soaking stockings, warping wood. Save it for the parlor. Madam's voice slices through the house with surgical precision. It is not loud. It is not shrill. But it stops the argument instantly. Her tone is a whip crack wrapped in velvet. Silence falls like a curtain. You almost applaud from behind your door. Afterward, the house moves differently. Girls avoid eye contact. No one lingers in doorways. Everyone circles one another like dancers at a ball, unsure when the next song will start or what tempo it will take. Historians like to draw neat lines around brothels of the Victorian era. They classify them into clean little boxes: the luxurious high-class establishments with velvet drapes and well-fed cats, the disorderly lodgings with chaos in the corners, the street-level dens that reek of despair. But this house, like so many others, refuses such simplification. It is both opulent and threadbare. The curtains are velvet, yes, but they are faded and moth-nibbled. The crystal glasses clink. But only because they are cracked. The rooms smell faintly of rosewater, dust, and mildew. Glamour dances atop rot. Illusion rests atop exhaustion. Tonight, you are assigned to the green room. It is the largest of the working rooms, but its grandeur has long since faded. The wallpaper peels behind the dresser, and the settee, once elegant, now leans slightly to the left. The rug has been strategically placed to conceal a dark, crusted stain of uncertain origin. You don't ask. You never ask. Your client is already waiting. He wears gold cufflinks and polished boots. A wedding ring gleams on his finger, which he makes no attempt to hide. He speaks with practiced charm, like a man who spends most of his days rehearsing honesty and most of his nights discarding it. He tells you everything. His wife's name. His daughter's piano recital. The way his Labrador cocks its head when confused. You listen, nodding, offering gentle smiles. This is not unusual. Many men come here seeking confession more than touch. They mistake you for a priest. Or a mirror. What surprises you is what he gives you afterward. Not a coin. Not a compliment. But a letter. Folded. Sealed. Addressed, "Post it for me." He asks, already tugging on his gloves with the absent-minded grace of someone used to being obeyed. You nod. You do not ask what the letter says. You do not look him in the eye. Later that night, you sit with it in your hand under the glow of the hallway lamp. The wax seal is plain. The name is unfamiliar. Curiosity flutters in your chest like a trapped wasp. You imagine what it contains. A farewell? A confession? An apology long overdue? You will never know. You drop it in the red post box at the corner and walk away. That is the thing about secrets in a place like this. They are never truly yours, but they cling to you all the same, like coal dust under fingernails. They settle into your seams and make their home in the folds of your memory. At dinner, the mood shifts again. Rosie starts humming a tune, an old ballad with no name and too many verses. Eliza joins in on the second round, her voice low and warm. Even Madame, seated at the head of the table with her fork poised like a scepter, allows herself a small smile. The bread is stale. The pickled onions make your eyes water. But with the singing, it almost feels like a celebration. Afterward, as the hour turns soft and strange, the girls gather for what Rosie has dubbed the witching sit. It is the brief window between the last knock on the door and the first bird call. Everyone is still in costume, rouge on cheeks, perfume on wrists, but the posture is gone. Hair is half unpinned. Corsets hang looser. Laughter is slower, softer. Tonight's topic is a favorite, the worst client. There are too many candidates. One man demanded to recite Latin while brushing a powdered wig and insisted on being addressed as Your Holiness. Another fell asleep sobbing into someone's lap while mumbling about his first love. You win, eventually, when you admit a man once begged you to insult his poetry while dressed as a nun. You did it. Twice, they laugh. This time it is real. A curious footnote to the evening, Eliza owns a posing manual, a slim little book from some long-forgotten finishing school. It is filled with elegant turns of phrase and carefully constructed facial expressions meant to charm, flatter, and disarm. You flip through it while she snoozes, her head resting on folded arms. One line sticks with you: the eyes must always smile, even when the mouth mourns. You close the book gently and wonder if you have mastered that yet. You suspect the answer is yes. You fall asleep in your shift, the scent of lavender clinging to your skin, mixed with the musk of sweat and the dust of the day. Your rouge is still smudged across one cheek, and your hair has come undone in places. Somewhere downstairs, Madame is still awake, ledger open, quill scratching, counting coins and names. Your dreams are quieter than usual. No faces. No voices. Just drifting light, warm color, and a soft, imagined whisper in your ear telling you that you are clever. That you are more than just pretty. You wake before the others. The house is still. Light slants in through the curtains, catching dust in its path and turning it to gold. You sit up slowly, watching it drift, suspended in the hush. It looks peaceful. But you know better. Beneath the calm, the house hums with motion. With whispers, with silent deals, with envy and affection in equal measure. With kindness wearing someone else's perfume. With the invisible threads of competition and survival woven tightly between the girls and the walls that hold them, you are learning the dance, and you are starting to keep rhythm. You are scrubbing your inner arm with vinegar water and a worn rag, trying to chase away the memory of last night with sharp astringency and mechanical motion. The vinegar stings the tiny scratches along your skin, but you keep going, focused only on the task. The scent is sharp, sour, and familiar. It clings to everything in this place: linens, fingers, breath. You rub harder, as if effort could erase more than just dirt. Rosie appears in the doorway without warning, her frame casting a shadow that draws your attention before her voice ever does. Her eyes carry a look you've come to recognize, one that means urgency disguised behind indifference. Her lips don't move much when she speaks. Don't ask. Just come. You don't argue. You drop the rag, still dripping, and wipe your hands along the hem of your petticoat. Damp, sour patches bloom on the fabric. You follow her silently, footsteps soft across the hallway boards that creak like old bones. There's no time for questions, no time for second guesses. She leads you into the kitchen, where the light is weak and the air is still, heavy with something unsaid. Meg is slumped forward over the rough wooden table, her thin arms folded beneath her head. Her skin is pale, not just fair, but waxy, like the stub of a candle burned too low. Her shoulders rise and fall in uneven rhythm, breath catching now and then like a thread snagging on a nail. She's coughing again, Rosie whispers, keeping her voice low, as though the walls might overhear and tattle. Hard. The sound comes a moment later, as if summoned, a rasping, guttural cough that starts in the lungs and rattles its way through her ribs. It seems to echo through the beams of the house, drawing the wallpaper tighter with each breath. The sound is familiar. Too familiar. You've heard it before. From the alley behind the bakery. From behind the heavy velvet curtain in the parlor. From girls who once occupied Meg's room and then didn't. No one says the word, but you can feel it settle in the corners of the room like invisible dust. Consumption. It floats on the silence like smoke from a snuffed-out lamp. She needs a rest, Eliza says softly, stepping into the room from behind you. Her face is calm, but her fingers fidget with the edge of her sleeve. A few days off. A little warmth. Some quiet. Madame enters last. She takes in the scene with one cool glance and raises a single eyebrow, then who covers her clients? It's not cruel, not exactly. Just the way things are. Illness is not considered a tragedy here. It is an inconvenience, a logistical issue. It becomes a problem only when it affects the rhythm of the business. If a girl is too sick to smile, too weak to paint her face, too pale to be profitable, then decisions must be made. The wheels must keep turning. Unless you are visibly contagious, unless the clients start to notice, you keep working. And sometimes, even then, the work doesn't stop. You help Meg back to her room, which now feels colder than usual. Her steps are slow and shuffled, her weight leaning heavier against you with every stare. You guide her to her narrow bed and ease her down as gently as you can. She shivers under the covers, even with her skin burning. You press a damp cloth to her forehead and set a chipped mug of watered wine beside her pillow. Her eyes are glassy, her breath uneven. You whisper something that might have been comforting, though you can't recall what it was later. It probably didn't matter. Back downstairs, someone presses Meg's corset into your arms. Make yourself fit it. No apology. No explanation. Just the quiet expectation that you will become her for the night. You do, because here, that is what's done. The show must go on, even if the lead actress is coughing up blood in a room at the back of the house. Even if you feel like the understudy to someone else's suffering. That evening, you wear Meg's perfume. It's different from yours. A strong rose with an undercurrent of clove that clings to your wrists and throat. It makes your head ache slightly. You sit with a banker who is too tired to flirt and too proud to admit he is sweating through his collar. He talks about coal prices and tariffs, about steel and foreign interests. You smile when appropriate, nod at intervals, and let your fingers tremble only where he cannot see them. There is no illusion left. Not even a wisp of romance clings to these encounters anymore, and here is a historical tidbit for you. In many Victorian brothels, sheep bladder condoms were common. They were thin, barely reliable. Soaked in water beforehand to make them pliable. Some houses offered them for a charge. Others expected the girls to supply their own, like rouge or ribbon. You keep one, folded tight and flat, hidden in a sachet tucked inside your stocking. You also keep vinegar close, not just for washing the floors or wiping the blood from linen, but for washing yourself. After. During. Whenever it feels necessary. No one truly believes it protects you from anything real, but when it's all you have, you use it. You've begun keeping your own journal now. Quiet. Private. Not like Meg's. Hers is detailed, a record. Yours is smaller, softer. Just one word a night. Sometimes two. Tired. Dull. Worried. Kind. Gone. You never show it to anyone. It's not for them. It's for you. A memory. A map. A mark. Meg's breathing worsens. She begins coughing blood into handkerchiefs that are quickly rinsed in vinegar water and hung to dry behind the stove. Madam finally sends for the doctor, not out of sentiment, but because clients have begun to comment. The doctor arrives one evening, his coat smelling of whiskey and camphor, his fingers cold and sure. He listens to Meg's chest. He frowns. He whispers something into Madam's ear that makes her mouth tighten like a drawstring purse. Meg is moved to a back room. One that doesn't get much light. Rosie brings her broth made from bone scraps and water. Eliza sits with her during slow hours, darning stockings in silence. You write thin in your notebook that night, the word taking up too much space on the page. The girls begin whispering about others who coughed like this. Dora. Ivy. One whose name no one remembers now. One who vanished sometime between a Tuesday afternoon and a Friday evening. Her bed was made the next morning. Her pillowcases washed and pressed. No one spoke of her again. Historians still debate whether brothels offered better health than life on the streets. Some say yes. Some say no. You've stopped wondering. You live here. You see the truth in bruises and breathlessness. You feel it in the cracks of the floorboards and the sourness of the air. There is a man now who brings you oranges. He peels them for you slowly, neatly, with practiced fingers. He does not touch you. He does not ask for anything more than your company. He talks about his sister, about novels, about the sea. Once, he asked if you had ever seen the ocean. You lied and said yes. You described blue waves and salt air and sand so fine it felt like sugar. He smiled. The smile was not for you. It was for something far away. You think, briefly, about asking Madam if you can see him more often. She would say yes, if the pay is good. But you know better than to believe in stories. The story of the rescue. The story of the man who sees more. The story of the new life. Instead, you keep the peels. You lay them out on your windowsill, let them dry and curl. For 3 days, your room smells faintly of citrus and something almost like summer. It feels like a win. That same week, another girl starts to cough. The pattern begins again. You do not ask who might be next. You do not speak the word. You just keep working. Quirky tidbit of the night, some girls in houses like this used crushed pearl powder for their skin, to shimmer beneath the candlelight. What no one told them was that it could slowly poison you, seeping into the blood beneath the beauty. You're not sure if anyone here uses it. But Rosie's cheeks have a glow lately that isn't entirely natural. One night, Madam walks to Meg's room, closes the door softly, and ties a piece of black lace to the handle. A signal. No one asks. No one says her name aloud. Later, when you help strip Meg's bed, you find a spoon tucked under her pillow. Its handle bears her initials, carved small and shaky with a pin. You slide it into your pocket without speaking. Eliza says quietly, almost like a prayer, there's never time to mourn, only to move. You don't ask how many times she has said that sentence. You don't want to know. That night, when the gas lights are low and the corridors feel longer than usual, you cry into your pillow. Just a little. Just enough to feel it. You make no sound. You make sure no one hears. In the morning, you are back in your corset. You powder your cheeks. You line your eyes. You press rouge into the apples of your face. You smile, but something in you feels dimmed now. Not broken. Just colder. A little quieter, like the house itself has taken something and not given it back. The pamphlet arrives on a Sunday morning, borne on the breeze and pressed into your hand by a woman whose bonnet is so wide it grazes the peeling brick walls of the narrow lane. She does not meet your gaze. Her eyes flicker over you as if afraid to land, as though your existence might be contagious. Her fingers are gloved and tremble slightly as they slip the leaflet into your palm with the cautious tenderness of someone offering a handkerchief to someone bleeding out. Jesus saves, it says in elegant cursive, the ink faded, the loops of the letters fragile and birdlike. Just beneath, in smaller print, are you lost, sister? You pause for a moment, staring at the words. You are not sure what answer she is hoping for. Maybe silence. Maybe repentance. Maybe tears. You feel none of those things. You offer no reply. Only a nod, small and practiced, and then you move on, slipping the leaflet into the pocket of your skirt without looking at it again. Sundays in the brothel have their own rhythm. Business slows but does not stop. The atmosphere is not restful, only quieter in a way that feels tense rather than soothing. Some clients avoid the place entirely, as if their faith clutches at their ankles when the bells chime in the distance. Others, paradoxically, come only on Sundays, explaining that the day of rest makes them feel lonelier than usual. Loneliness, you've learned, does not respect religion. You polish the brass railings along the stairwell, cloth in hand, elbow aching, and watch the sunlight drift through the stained windows, casting gold onto the dust motes that rise like spirits in the quiet air. As your arm moves in circles, you find yourself repeating the word from the pamphlet. Lost. You taste it in your mouth like something bitter and familiar. Are you lost? Were you ever truly found? Or is this, precisely and without deviation, the place you were always meant to land? Rosie, passing by with a tray of empty glasses, glances at your pocket and smirks. Never trust the women who hand out pamphlets, she mutters without slowing. They don't want you saved. They want to feel better about walking past. You say nothing. But you do keep the pamphlet. That afternoon, Madame's favorite priest arrives. He is not dressed in his collar or his robes today. He wears a dark suit, finely tailored, with a matching cigar case tucked under one arm and a heavy coin purse swinging gently from the other. His presence is almost jovial. He tells jokes to the girls, most of them about other people's sins. His voice fills the room like the sound of distant bells, pleasant at first, but hollow after a while. He always insists on praying, but never before the act. Only after. You are not assigned to him. You stand just outside the parlor, listening through the crack in the wall as he murmurs something about mercy. Even saints need it, he says with a theatrical sigh. You think about Meg. You think about Dora and Ivy and the others whose names are no longer spoken. You do not feel very saint-like. Historians often write of how Victorian reformers sought to rescue women like you. They use words like redemption and reformation. But those books rarely mention what came after the rescue. Some of the women were sent to houses run by religious orders where silence was enforced like a curfew. Some were retrained as laundresses, their hands cracked from soap and steam. Some were taught to sew until their backs bent like old branches. Many simply left when the food ran out or the sermons grew too loud. They wandered back to the only life that fed them. Later that day, the mood shifts again. A visitor arrives whose boots are too clean and whose buttons gleam too brightly in the hallway light. A constable, tall and straight-backed, dressed in regulation blue and carrying himself like someone who does not knock. He is known to Madame. She greets him without flinching, but something in her eyes sharpens like a knife. He tips his hat to the girls in the front room, each motion deliberate, but his smile is thin and brittle, as if cut from paper. He says it is a routine check. No one believes him. Routine means something has happened. Routine means a warning. He speaks to Madame in private. The conversation is short. When he leaves, the girls notice two things. A new name is written in Madame's ledger. And the new girl appears at dinner. Her name is Lizzie. She is very young. Too young. She has a limp that she does not try to hide, and her eyes are wide in a way that is not innocent but frightened. You do not ask how she arrived. You already know. No one says it aloud, but the air is thick with understanding. Rosie gives her a shawl from her own drawer, threadbare but warm. Eliza hands her a chipped mug of warm milk and holds it steady until Lizzie's hands stop shaking. You do not offer advice. You sit beside her and help her lace her corset, guiding her trembling fingers with your own. When she begins to cry, small and silent, you do not shush her. You let her cry. You remember what it feels like to need that first silence. That evening, the priest returns. Lizzie is spared this time. You are not. Your client is a man with a fondness for philosophy and a poor understanding of boundaries. He speaks of Plato and Socrates with breath that smells faintly of claret and cigars. He tugs at your stays while musing aloud about the allegory of the cave. You focus on the candle flickering beside the mirror, the pattern of the wallpaper, the feel of the sheet beneath your fingertips. You breathe through your nose and think of anything else. You murmur something in French, meaningless but sweet. He sighs as if you have sung to him. Afterward, you go to the kitchen. You slice a piece of cold bread and press a whisper of cheese onto it. The cheese is so thin it curls at the corners. You eat slowly, the silence humming in your ears. By the firelight, you retrieve the pamphlet from your pocket and read it for the first time. It speaks of sin and salvation, of turning from temptation and being reborn. But there is nothing in it about sore feet, about the ache in your thighs, about the salt in your eyes or the smell of sweat and rosewater that follows you to bed. Rosie appears beside you, peering over your shoulder. She reads aloud from the last line. She turned from the path of temptation and was made pure again. She snorts softly. Wonder what she did next. Sewed buttons until her fingers bled. You fold the pamphlet slowly, neatly. You slide it beneath the sugar tin on the shelf. You return to work. A curious historical note: some reformers believed redemption required silence and repetition. They would make fallen women sit for hours, sewing straight seams in total quiet. They called it cleansing. You call it cruelty. You would rather stay here, with Madame and Rosie and Eliza, and take your chances with vinegar and rouge. One evening, Lizzie looks at you and asks the question you had been hoping she wouldn't. Do you remember your first client? You nod. Then you lie. You tell her he was kind. That he smelled like oranges. That he gave you a shilling and called you beautiful. She exhales, her shoulders softening. Relief paints her face with the kind of hope you haven't seen in years. You wonder if someone once lied to you in exactly the same way. Later that night, the constable returns. He does not come for Lizzie. He comes to see Madame. This time, he does not linger. No hat tipping. No glances. He enters, speaks, leaves. It is not money that changes hands. It is something else. A name, perhaps. Information. A debt settled. You are not close enough to hear. But you see Madame's face afterward. It is the same face. But somehow older. She finds you later, sitting at your vanity, brushing your hair with long, steady strokes. You're clever, she says. Her tone is calm, almost kind. Don't forget to stay useful. You nod once. She walks away. You do not sleep well that night. In the morning, the pamphlet is gone. You lift the sugar tin. Nothing beneath it. Rosie shrugs when you ask. Says the tin must have eaten it. You do not press further. Outside, on the same narrow lane, the same woman stands with the same wide bonnet, holding a fresh stack of leaflets in her gloved hands. She smiles with her mouth but not with her eyes. Her presence is like a page in a book you have read too many times. You pass by without stopping. You say nothing, you are not lost, you are precisely where the world has narrowed and funneled you, and until something changes, you are staying right here. You call it your day off, though that word feels too grand for what it really is. There's no formal notice pinned to the wall, no bell that chimes to say you may rest, no kind voice declaring, today, you are a person. It is not so much a gift as an oversight, an accidental window of quiet. You simply wake up and notice, for the first time in 7 endless days, that your name is not written beside a time slot on Madame's sheet. No one has asked for you. No knock came to your door. No summons whispered your name down the hallway. Madame didn't glance your way that morning when calling out assignments. Rosie was chosen, then Eliza. Lizzie's name was said softly, as if she might break. But yours? Omitted. Your corset is still folded at the foot of the bed, its ribbons tangled, untouched, lying like a sleeping snake in the early light. You sit up and stare at it for a long time, as though it might blink or breathe or crack apart into dust. You half expect it to vanish if you look away. It doesn't. It just waits. You eat your porridge slowly that morning, stirring it more than tasting it. The steam curls into the air like incense, rising from the bowl in delicate spirals. You watch it as if it might carry a message, as if some truth might be spelled out in the swirls of heat above your spoon. It smells faintly of oats and salt and old milk. Rosie is already powdered. Her lashes thick with soot. Eliza crouches in a corner, polishing a client's boots with precise, even strokes. Lizzie sits by the window, her mouth pursed, practicing how to smile without showing fear. You slip out without being noticed. No one asks where you are going. No one tells you to stay. Outside, the city greets you with its usual gray indifference. The fog is thinner today, clinging low to the gutters instead of smothering the rooftops. It softens the gas lamp glow but does not erase it. The buildings loom, stained with soot and age, leaning into one another like tired old men. You wrap your shawl closer around your shoulders and begin to walk. You head east, toward the market district, though you have no reason, no list, no errand. Just the need to be somewhere else. Each step feels unfamiliar. Your body moves oddly without its usual armor. No heels, no painted face, no practiced gait. You are lighter but also exposed. You pass between carts piled with bruised apples and crates of overripe plums. Vendors shout in accents thick as gravy. Wilted daisies hang from twine. A boy with muddy knees sprints past, his laughter trailing behind him like a scarf in the wind. A man with arms up to the elbow in slime yells about eels. The absurdity of it makes you nearly laugh. Almost, you pause in front of a shop window. There, resting between chipped teacups and tarnished silver spoons, is a mirror. Just a second-hand piece, its edges spotted, the frame cracked. But it draws you in. You see yourself in it, reflected back as if through water. And you blink. Not because you are startled by what you see, but because of what you don't. There is no paint on your cheeks. No coal smudging your eyes. No deliberate tilt to your chin. You are not posed. You are not performing. You are real. Breathing. Present. A few streets down, you find an old woman hunched beneath a faded umbrella, selling bundles of herbs from a basket that looks older than she is. You kneel and ask for lavender. She eyes your dress. The fabric is too fine for someone with empty hands, but she says nothing. Her fingers are knotted with age, but gentle. She hands you a sprig, loosely wrapped in paper. Smells like somewhere better, she mutters. You aren't sure if she's speaking to you or to herself. A bit of quirky folklore flits through your memory. Some women in your trade believed that carrying lavender could keep illness at bay. Some said it eased sadness. You wonder if the one in your sleeve will manage either. You pass a bakery. You stop. You press your nose against the cool glass and inhale. The scent pours over you like a memory you never had. Warm yeast. Cinnamon. Sweet bread glazed in sugar so fine it glistens like frost. You cannot afford any of it, but you stand there all the same. Breathing. Remembering that not every pleasure must cost flesh, at a nearby bookseller's stall. You thumb through a slim poetry book with a frayed spine. The stall owner looks up, distracted and tired, then waves a hand as if to say you may linger if you wish. You are welcome so long as you don't smudge the pages. You read a sonnet about rivers, the kind with too many metaphors and not enough truth, and find yourself almost crying. Not because it is good, but because it tries. You think of Meg. You think of her journal and the way she wrote down everything she could not say aloud. By the time the sun reaches its peak, your feet ache. Your boots, worn and stiff, rub at your heels. The freedom of the morning has dulled into weariness. This life, this borrowed version of life, feels distant and delicate, as if it might shatter with one wrong turn. You find a bench beneath a horse chestnut tree and lower yourself slowly. The air is crisp with the smell of smoke and leaves. You sit quietly and watch. An older couple passes, hand in hand, walking as though they have done so for years. A nursemaid pushes a pram with one gloved hand and dabs at her nose with the other. A street preacher bellows something about fire, brimstone, and women of sin. A dog barks at him until he falls silent. You smile softly. The world, for once, seems content to spin without you in its center. But the brothel follows you. Even here, across the street, you spot a man. He walks briskly, his hat low, his coat too fine for his scowl. You recognize him. A recent client. You meet eyes, briefly. He looks away. He does not wave. He does not smile. He turns down a side alley and vanishes as if erasing you from his memory. Out here, you are a shadow. Inside the house, you are something else. But not here. Here, you do not exist. That is how it works. In the parlor, you are seen. Outside, you are invisible. Historians like to wonder whether women like you had leisure. Some say yes. There are stories of long walks in Hyde Park, of tea in garden cafes, of outings to theaters, laughter echoing from private balconies. But you suspect those tales belong to a very different kind of girl, in a very different kind of house. You know this instead. Days like today are not routine. They are not granted. They are taken. Small hours slip from the ledger when no one is looking. Eventually, you make your way back. Not because anyone summons you, but because you are tired. The street has turned colder. The shawl around your shoulders smells of smoke and grease. The lavender in your sleeve is half crushed. Your pocket is empty, but you feel heavier. You open the door without knocking. No one comments on your return. Lizzie sits at the old pianoforte, playing a halting melody with just one hand. Eliza sits cross-legged, darning a pair of stockings with a mouthful of pins. Madam is in the back room. The door is shut. You hear the constable's voice. You climb the stairs, slow and steady. Your hands are cold. You wash them. You brush your hair. You sit quietly on the edge of your bed. The corset is still waiting where you left it. You lift your pillow. You slip the lavender underneath, then you lie down, closing your eyes against the gaslight, and you dream of rivers, not because you want to run. Not because you long to flee, only to float. The ledger lies open on Madam's desk, its spine cracked and its corners softened by time. The ink on the most recent entries glistens faintly, not yet dry. Faint rings of tea stains mark its margins, overlapping faded fingerprints and the faint indent of a pen stabbed too hard. The air in her office smells faintly of lavender oil and worn paper, a scent that never quite leaves your nose. you are not meant to see it. That much has always been clear. The ledger is her dominion, her throne. It is not for the girls. It is for her, and perhaps the constable, and whoever else keeps the gears of this place turning. But now, here you are. Standing alone in the room while she murmurs something low and clipped to someone behind the folding screen in the corner. Her silhouette flickers in the frosted lamplight, and in the silence, the ledger stares at you, your eyes fall to it slowly, as if drawn against your better judgment. One column lists initials, carefully written in Madame's thin cursive, each letter pressed with an exacting pressure. Another column lists dates. A third marks fees in neat ascending rows. But it is the final column that makes your breath catch, that sets your stomach tightening into a cold knot. Deductions. You read them slowly, one by one. Board. Meals. Clothing allowance. House maintenance. Powder. Soap, marked as shared. Candle use. Tea, when served hot. A single line reads, broken mirror glass, 6p. The words are precise, clinical. Nothing is forgotten, not even a splintered reflection, and then you find your own entry. You spot it instantly. It's there in the center of the page, circled in red pencil. Your initials. Your debts. Your name without your name. You stand there and realize you are deeper in arrears than you imagined. You thought you had been scraping by. You thought the tips tucked into your boot heel were slowly stacking into something like survival, but the numbers say otherwise. When Madame returns, she does not acknowledge the ledger. She carries a coin between two fingers and holds it out like an offering. From your regular, she says, her voice light, casual, as though you were talking about flowers or weather. The one with the oranges. You nod. You say thank you. It comes out softer than you mean it to. She smiles, but the kind of smile she wears when her mind has already moved on. She turns back to her desk, returning to the page, her pen poised. You are dismissed even before your footsteps reach the threshold. Back in your room, you sit on the edge of your bed and slip the coin into your hiding place, the hollow heel of your right boot. You tilt it slightly and listen to the sound of metal on metal. There are 9 now. 9 shillings. You count them not by touch but by sound. You've memorized the weight. It is not enough for freedom. It might be enough for a new corset. Perhaps a visit to a doctor. Maybe a ticket to somewhere you will never actually go. You lie back and stare up at the ceiling. The plaster is cracked in one corner, and a spider has made a delicate web near the beam. You feel something shift inside your chest. A strange sensation, like a drawer has opened too wide, revealing something you hadn't meant to look at. A quiet ache fills your ribs. Not sorrow. Not panic. Just the slow understanding of the trap you hadn't quite realized you were in. Rosie finds you like that. Half dressed, your corset unlaced, your petticoat askew. She leans against the doorframe, her arms crossed loosely. She showed you the book. She asks, her voice low. You nod. Your eyes remain on the ceiling. She lets out a laugh that doesn't sound like laughter at all. She always does, around this point. When you start thinking maybe you're doing all right. Makes it feel like all you need is a pencil and a plan. Like escape is just arithmetic. You close your eyes. Later that day, Madame calls your name. There is a new client. You are expected. You dress quietly, without protest. The man is young. Perhaps a student. His skin is still smooth, untouched by time or consequence. He stammers when he speaks. When he takes your hand, he holds it like he thinks you might vanish. You deserve better, he says. His voice trembles, you almost laugh. Not out of cruelty, but disbelief. The absurdity of it. But instead, your throat tightens. You nod, your smile practiced, but your eyes feel hot, after he leaves, you find yourself back near the ledger, standing by the door, once again alone. No one calls you away. No one seems to notice you have lingered. You approach the book again. You run your finger along your initials. You trace the numbers, the charges, the fees. You wonder how deep the debt would run if they charged for dreams, too. For hopes. For memories. For every lie you tell yourself to get through the night. That evening, Eliza motions for you to come to her room. She shuts the door behind you and lifts the rug near her dressing table. A floorboard creaks. She pries it loose with care. Inside is a small cavity, neatly lined with folded paper, receipts. Letters. Notes. Each one carefully tucked away. She pulls one out. It is worn, soft at the edges. A letter from her sister, the postmark faded, the ink light from age. It is dated 2 years ago. There is no second letter. I'm staying, Eliza says, voice barely above a whisper. But I still want someone to know I was. You don't know what to say. So you ask the question that has been in your throat all day. Did you ever try to leave? She tilts her head slightly. Shrugs, once. I got as far as the corner. I stood there, thinking I'd go left. Or right. But there was no left. No right. Just the cold. So I turned back and told Madam I had stepped out for tea. The next morning, Lizzie breaks a teacup while helping in the kitchen. The crash echoes through the hallway. She stands still, frozen, lips trembling. Her hands shake so violently it's as if the porcelain shards have splintered through her. Before Madam can reach her, Rosie steps forward. She pulls a few coins from her pocket and hands them over without fanfare. She's too new to lose coin, Rosie mutters. And too scared to speak. It is not written down. There is no record of it in any book. But you write it anyway, that night, in your own way, Rosie, 2 shillings, forgiveness, that night, you dream. The numbers from the ledger march through your sleep like soldiers. You see ink-stained fingers and columns that multiply faster than you can count. You dream of running down cobbled streets, your boots catching fire, only to melt beneath you like sugar in the rain. You wake gasping, sweat dampening your collar. You whisper your name. Your real name. The one they don't use here. Just once, no one hears. The house is silent, and you are still in it. You are brushing the dust from your skirt, small flicks of your wrist catching bits of lint and ash, when the knock comes. It is not like the others. It does not carry the swagger of entitlement or the dull rhythm of impatience. This knock is soft, barely audible, like someone tapping only because they feel they must, not because they truly expect an answer. It hesitates between beats, uncertain, almost apologetic. You frown slightly. You know the usual types, the ones who pound as if they already own the space. This one is different. You open the door, he is already looking at the floor. His shoes are clean, polished but modest. His coat is well fitted, a dark wool that smells faintly of soap and the damp outside. His hands are gloved, resting stiffly at his sides. He is younger than most. Perhaps 30, give or take a year. No wedding ring on his left hand. No wildness in his eyes. No ivory-topped cane or cigar scent clinging to his collar. He introduces himself by name, which almost never happens, and then does something rarer still. He offers his hand. You shake it before thinking, before remembering that most men here do not shake hands. They take. They reach. They command. This one, though, simply waits. His voice is quiet. Low and measured. May I sit with you a while? You pause. You wait for the question that always comes after. The request. The reveal. The moment the mask of gentleness drops and something stranger. Something sharper takes its place, but there is no such moment. He does not ask you to undress. He does not ask for role-play, or language, or lace. He does not want French words murmured in his ear or for you to pretend you are anyone else. He sits beside you on the chaise longue with the posture of someone in mourning. And then he begins to talk. He tells you about his wife. She died 2 years ago, he says. Quietly. In her sleep. He says it like he is still trying to believe it. His hand rests loosely on his knee. His gaze flickers toward the carpet when it grows too heavy to hold your eyes. He tells you about his work, something to do with paper, printing, perhaps, or ledgers. You are not sure. He does not linger on details. He circles loneliness instead, returning to it again and again like a man walking the perimeter of a house he cannot bring himself to enter. You nod. You murmur words when needed. You offer small smiles, the kind that do not press but invite. You are very good at that. It is what you are trained to do. But then, just once, he glances down, catches the edge of your gaze, and says softly, I know you probably hate all this. But I think you're very brave. You freeze, though your face does not show it, brave. The word lands heavily. No one uses that word here. Not in these halls. Not under these rules. You are clever, sometimes. You are lovely, often. But brave? That is a language not spoken here. He leaves after an hour. Pays double the usual rate. He does not touch you. Not once. When he closes the door behind him, you notice a small square of white fabric left on the corner of the bed. A handkerchief. Clean. Carefully folded. The embroidery in the corner is delicate, stitched with initials you do not recognize. You lift it gently and press it to your cheek before placing it in the drawer beneath your stays, between the sachet of lavender and the worn comb. He returns the next week. And the one after. It becomes a rhythm, almost. A soft note in the background of your otherwise clanging days. He brings small gifts. Books, mostly. A volume of poetry with a pressed flower tucked inside. Oranges wrapped in thin cloth. Once, he brings a pencil, saying he thought you might write. You tell yourself it is nothing. A routine. A moment of quiet in the clamor. A space to breathe. But something in you shifts. On the evenings he is expected, you begin to dress a little differently. You reach for the comb with the brass handle instead of the plain one. You dab your wrists with the sweeter perfume. You do not name what you are doing. You do not dare to name it, but Rosie notices. Rosie always notices. One evening, as she's pinning up her curls in front of the mirror, she glances sideways at you. Careful, she says, voice light but edged. Falling for a client's like dancing in shoes made of sugar. Sooner or later, you'll drown. You roll your eyes. You say you're not falling. You say it like a joke. You say you're just leaning. But the words ring hollow, even to you, Thomas. That is the name he gave you. You still do not know if it is real. He lingers longer now, sometimes reads aloud while you sit beside him, your legs curled beneath you like a girl at rest. He reads poems. Some by Byron. Some by men you've never heard of. He says he used to teach. You nod, not certain whether to believe him. Part of you wants to. Part of you knows better. He never asks what you want. But one night, after reading a passage about two lovers separated by the sea, he sets the book down and says, almost to himself, if things were different. You stop him with a look. Because they are not. And they will not be. The fantasy is beautiful. But the door out of it does not exist. Historians still debate the nature of relationships between girls like you and men like him. Some write of rescues. Of girls swept into carriages and taken to houses with gardens and soft linen sheets. Others write of girls saving men instead. Saving them from madness or grief or the long silence of their own minds. You do not know where this fits. You only know that whatever it was real enough to ache, and then 1 week, he does not come. You wait longer than you need to. Unassigned. Idle. Rouge drying on your cheeks, cracked at the edges. Madame raises a brow when she passes you in the hallway but says nothing. She rarely needs to. The silence speaks for her. The next week, still no sign. By the third, you stop waiting. You erase his name from your thoughts. You check the newspaper, though you do not know his last name. You scan the names of the dead, the court listings, the business changes. Nothing. You walk past the flower shop he once mentioned in passing. Just once. Just to see. The windows are dusty, he is gone, you keep the handkerchief anyway. That night, a man comes in with hands like ice and eyes the color of morning fog. He says very little. He does not ask for anything unusual. He kisses you once, dryly. Leaves early. After he's gone, you lie on the chaise longue, still in your bodice, your skirt bunched at your knees. You stare at the ceiling and let your thoughts drift, trying to convince yourself that perhaps you imagined it all. You didn't. Rosie pours you a glass of port in the kitchen, pressing it into your hand without asking what happened. Better a man who walks away, she says quietly, than one who stays and rots your heart out from the inside. You nod. You sip. The ache in your chest remains. Here is your strange historical footnote. In the more luxurious brothels of the Victorian age, clients were sometimes given the option to book girls for extended companionship. Weekends. Holidays. Quiet evenings by the fire. Some girls got used to them. Some began to care. Some even learned to love. But love, here, is not a currency. It is a cost. And it is always too high. You return to work. You move through the parlor with your practiced poise. You offer the right smiles. You speak the rehearsed words. But inside, something has changed. Not broken. Just altered. A sound muffled behind glass. A window closed tight against the wind. You dream of the pressed flower. It has already crumbled. You pull the curtain aside with 2 fingers, just enough to allow a narrow slice of daylight to spill through. Your breath fogs the glass faintly. You lean forward and peer down into the alley below. Steam curls up lazily from a grating set into the cobblestone, twisting like pale ribbons into the air before vanishing into the damp. The bricks are wet from some earlier rain, though you didn't hear it fall. The sky overhead is a strange and muddled shade, too gray to claim the certainty of morning, yet too pale to belong to night. It sits over the rooftops like a mood no one can quite name. Somewhere in the house, someone is singing. Not well. The voice wavers, off-key and uncertain. It could be Lizzie, humming to herself as she straightens her skirts. Or it could be a ghost, trying to remember the melody of a life it no longer lives. In this house, the difference is often difficult to tell. You've started moonlighting, not in the glamorous sense that novels sometimes suggest. There are no hidden stages, no crimson masks, no thrilling double life carried out in candlelight. Nothing of the sort. Just a bit of quiet work done with sore fingers and borrowed thread. You do small stitching jobs for the seamstress across the street, a thick-waisted woman with sharp black eyes and a voice like cracked leather. She keeps a tin of peppermint drops in her pocket and calls everyone girl. No matter their age, you sew buttons onto faded blouses. You mend hems torn by careless steps and hurried nights. Once, you help reinforce the lining of a man's coat using the cheapest flannel she had on hand, and when it's done, she hands you a coin and a peppermint without saying a word. It's not much. Just a sliver of income that isn't tied to Madame's ink-stained ledger. A trickle of something that smells faintly of autonomy, Rosie finds out, of course. She always does. Her eyes miss nothing. You trying to run? She asks you one morning, while she tears burnt toast into uneven pieces with her fingers. The edges are black, and the middle is still soft. No, you say quietly, barely glancing up. Just trying to remember I still have hands. She eyes you for a long moment. Then raises one eyebrow with the weight of a sermon. Hands won't save you, she says. A story will. She's not wrong. Most of the girls here have their own stories, carefully stitched together like garments meant to impress from a distance. There are personas they wear as easily as perfume. Eliza poses as a lady's maid in mourning when she goes to visit her brother in Southwark. She keeps her gloves on the entire time and only speaks in half-whispers. Lizzie, still new, once convinced a merchant's wife that she was a governess between posts. She even drank tea out of china so thin she was afraid it would shatter in her hands if she breathed too hard. You've learned the trick by now. Keep the masks clean. Keep the rolls separate. Don't let the rouge smudge from one face to the other. Victorian brothels were not only places of sin. They were theaters, workshops, sometimes even salons of ideas behind closed doors. Women reinvented themselves nightly. Some left entirely and became actresses. Some returned later, dressed in silk and mystery. Some married their patrons. But not many. And even fewer lived happily afterward. You begin crafting your own disguise. A dark cloak, borrowed from a laundry heap, altered with a higher collar to shadow the lower half of your face. A bonnet with a brim wide enough to hide your eyes. You use a false name when you collect coins from the seamstress. Mrs. Hale. You chose it because it sounds solid. Respectable. Nondescript, you begin to feel something close to power. Or maybe just distance. That's nearly the same. Until, one afternoon, you pass through the marketplace and spot a familiar face. A client. Recent. Not terrible. You see him before he sees you, but not fast enough. His eyes widen slightly in recognition, and then he smiles. Politely. Not cruelly. But knowingly. He doesn't say your name. He doesn't need to. His eyes do enough. You return the smile, small and stiff, and walk quickly away. Your heart beats like it's caught in a drawer. Later that evening, you burn the bonnet. Its lining smells faintly of onions and city smoke. It takes longer than expected to catch fire. You watch it until it crumbles to ash. The house feels smaller lately. Like it is shrinking into itself, absorbing every whispered secret and storing them inside the wallpaper. Madam is quieter now. Her movements sharper. She lingers in doorways more often. Observes without speaking. A new ledger appears on her desk, bound in red leather, the corners stiff with newness. You are not in it, not yet, but one afternoon, you hear your name, your real name, spoken aloud by her lips as she speaks to someone in the next room. It freezes you in place. You hadn't heard it said aloud in weeks. Maybe longer. You forget how it sounds. How sharp it feels. That night, you test the edges of your second life. You stay out later than usual. You wander streets you do not know. You do not work. You just walk. You pass shuttered shops and flickering gaslights, narrow alleys full of shouting vendors and the clatter of carts on cobblestone. The scent of fish clings to the air near the docks. You hear groaning from the hulls of ships. A splash follows something being thrown into the water. A dog begins to follow you. Mangy, limping slightly. He pads behind you for 3 blocks. You name him nobody, quietly under your breath. You pretend he belongs to you. Just for a moment, you almost do not return, almost. But the wind shifts. A chill cuts through your shawl. You remember the ache already beginning in your heels. The coppery weight of the coin sewn into the hem of your skirt. The scent of lavender on your pillow, mixed with dust and survival. And you turn back. Here's a curious footnote for the night: some brothel workers in the past would memorize entire novels. They recited them to one another like oral histories, passing lines back and forth in candlelight to stay sharp. Rosie is halfway through Jane Eyre. She speaks the lines while darning stockings, her voice soft and sure. You have just begun Wuthering Heights. You repeat certain phrases to yourself when no one is listening. Both of you understand the irony. The next morning, Madam says nothing about your absence. No questions. No punishments. Just silence, but there is a new girl. She appears before dinner. She is tall, statuesque, her hair twisted up in a careful coil. Her skin glows like ivory. Her gown is pressed, her gloves spotless. She looks like someone meant for chandeliers and string quartets. Not the creaking stairs of this house. You know what her arrival means. Someone is being edged out, so you work harder, you perfect your posture. You smile wider. You speak with just the right amount of sweetness and distance. You do not let her see you sweat. You do not let anyone see the effort. That night, when you return to your room, you lay out your sewing kit beside your rouge pot. One on the left. One on the right. Tools of two separate trades. Neither of them safe. Both of them yours. You sit. You breathe, you close your eyes, and dream of nothing, which, in this place, is a kind of mercy. The music tonight rises gently from the parlor, from where Lizzie sits hunched on the narrow piano bench, her shoulders drawn tight like string and her brow deeply furrowed. Her fingers hover hesitantly over the keys, coaxing out the notes of a lullaby she remembers only in fragments. It must be something from childhood, something tucked far back in the folds of memory, from a time when her world was smaller, quieter, safer. The melody wavers, missing steps, wandering into silence, then picking up again a bar too early or too late. Every few notes vanish entirely, like stones in a stream swallowed by the current. It stumbles. It repeats. It starts over, as if unsure where the end should be. But no one minds. Not tonight. Not in this room. It is the only music you have heard all day that does not demand anything of you. No murmured requests at your ear. No lyrics laced with suggestion. No hands creeping across the space between you and another. Just a girl, alone with her instrument and her half-remembered tune, offering it without price. You are curled up on the velvet sofa by the wall, the one whose cushions sag more than the others and whose upholstery has long since faded into a weary shade between burgundy and rust. The middle dips as if too many hearts have folded themselves there. It smells faintly of dust, rosewater, and age. A tired kind of perfume. Your corset is loosened. No longer cinched, but still clinging softly around your waist, a ghost of its usual shape. The laces dangle free, curling like ribbons across your hip. Your feet are bare, tucked under your skirt and beneath you for warmth. In your hands, you hold a chipped porcelain cup filled with something hot and vaguely comforting. It might be tea. It might only be hot water pretending to be something more. There is no scent, no sweetness. But the warmth seeps into your fingers and you hold it as you would a small animal. Carefully. Desperately. Your body feels heavier than usual. The kind of weight that does not come from fatigue alone, but from something deeper. From where? From repetition. From sorrow without tears. The exhaustion settles behind your eyes, crawls into your ribs, and anchors itself inside your limbs. Yet your mind refuses to join it. It stays alert. Buzzing. Alive. It flickers behind your temples like a trapped insect, a wasp throwing itself again and again against the glass. Faces rise unbidden behind your eyes. Names you try not to think about press forward with soft, persistent edges. You breathe in slowly, trying to blow them away like smoke. But they remain. They always do, lately, on nights like this. You've begun adding just a single drop of laudanum to your drink. Just one. Measured. Intentional. Not every night. Only when the quiet becomes a presence of its own. Only when the corners of the room start to lean in too close. It was Rosie's idea, of course. Almost everything dangerous that feels like comfort begins with Rosie. A little cloud in the brain keeps the wolves out, she had said with her knowing smile, dipping a silver spoon into her own cup as if it were honey and not something darker. The first time you tried it, you felt as though you were being wrapped in gauze. Not numb. Not senseless. But distanced. Cushioned. As though your bones had taken a step back from your skin and the world had gone slightly out of focus. Like a photograph smeared with soft light, but tonight, the cloud refuses to settle. It hovers, unsure, reluctant to gather. Your thoughts remain sharp, and the ache at the back of your head stays stubbornly in place. You take another sip, slow and deliberate, waiting for the fog to roll in. The candles on the mantel burn lower with every passing minute. Their flames flicker restlessly, disturbed by the invisible draft that slips in beneath the door. Madame passed through the parlor earlier in the evening, her presence unmistakable. Her perfume trailed after her like an announcement, lavender bruised against tobacco leaves, and something darker beneath that you could never name. She was muttering as she walked, speaking more to herself than to anyone else. She mentioned visitors. Gentlemen. Important ones. The kind who wore polished boots and gold cufflinks and expected obedience laced with charm. Touch up your laces, she murmured. Stand straight. Smile softly, you nodded. Everyone always nods. Rosie had offered to sing earlier, a lazy smirk curling her lip and one hand resting on her hip, the other brushing a curl from her cheek. But no one had asked her to follow through. Even Rosie didn't push it. There was no appetite for music with words tonight. The room was too full of unspoken things. Eliza is nearby, seated in a straight-backed chair with her ankles crossed and her posture precise. She is flipping through her little phrase book again, mouthing the lines softly as though reciting a prayer. Lines meant for strangers, for men who want to be flattered into forgetting their age or their wives. Tell me again how brave you are, you must be tired from carrying the weight of the world. The words sound ridiculous, spoken out loud with no one to hear them but the worn upholstery and the moths near the lampshade. But you've said worse. Once, you told a man that his hands reminded you of marble statues in a garden. Cold. Dignified. Still. He cried. He tipped generously. A strange detail floats to the top of your mind. In Victorian parlors, laudanum often came in small glass bottles, delicate and beautiful. The labels were painted in careful cursive, with names like sleep aid or nervous remedy. Women tucked them into embroidered pouches or hollowed-out prayer books. You once saw one hidden inside a sewing kit beside a thimble. Another was tied with ribbon and labeled, for dreams. Yours sits at the bottom of a teacup, the house creaks around you. It breathes like an animal gone too long without rest. A sigh echoes through the floorboards and rafters. Upstairs, you hear a bed shift, the frame giving a sharp creak. Then another. Then silence again. You make yourself resist the urge to match the sound to a room, or worse, to a name. You are not assigned tonight. No clients. No visits. Your name is absent from the list. You are what Madame calls, on float. Waiting. Present, but not promised. Available, but not claimed. It means you remain in the wings like an understudy, ready to step forward should another falter. Earlier, you nearly volunteered. Your hand hovered, half raised. The weight of idleness pressed too heavily on your chest. But Rosie had seen. She reached out across the table and curled her fingers gently around your wrist. "Don't," she had said. Her voice was soft, but her grip was sure. "Let the laudanum work. So you sit. And sip. And wait to drift." Some girls refuse it altogether. Eliza, for example, calls it poison. She says she wants to remember. She says forgetting is worse than pain. You think you understand what she means. You really do. But at the same time, you don't. You already remember far too much. You remember Thomas. The softness in his voice. The scent of pressed paper on his skin. The reverence with which he held books, as if they were made of breath. You remember the flower he gave you, dried between the pages, which crumbled into dust the day you opened it again. You remember Meg's cough and the way it rattled behind her ribs. You remember the black lace Madame tied to her doorknob, the silent signal that no one else would be stepping inside. You remember your own name. The way Madame said it once, before you had learned to look down. Before you had learned to smile on command. The way she shaped the air with it. The way it hurt. You take another sip. Across the parlor, Rosie begins to hum. She does not do it for the others. This is not a performance. It is simply sound for its own sake. A private lullaby, or perhaps a hymn, low and without words. It might be from her childhood. Or a country none of you have ever seen. The tune is slow and unfamiliar. The notes float like motes of dust in candlelight. Lizzie rises from the piano bench and pads softly across the floor in bare feet. She lowers herself beside you on the sofa and leans her head carefully against your shoulder. Her hair smells like lemon soap and fear. Her body shivers once, as if her bones have finally noticed the cold. "I don't want to forget my name," she whispers. You turn your face toward hers and draw her closer, wrapping one arm around her narrow frame. You tuck her in like you might a child or a bird with a broken wing. "Then say it, love," you whisper back. She does. A soft sound. Nearly lost in the hush of the room, you whisper yours too. Just once. Soft enough to pretend you hadn't said it at all. Eliza glances up sharply. Her voice hisses through the air like steam. "Madam will hear." Her warning is quiet, but her eyes are fierce. The piano falls silent. Someone has closed the lid. The lamp beside you flickers once, then holds steady. Sleep approaches. Not gently. Not kindly. But definitely. It stands at the threshold now, waiting for permission. You slide lower on the sofa, your legs folding beneath you, your back curling into the worn upholstery. Your spine aches. Your eyelids grow heavier with each breath. You are not dreaming of escape anymore. That hope has gone brittle from use. Now you dream of something quieter, a room where no one knows your name. A morning when no one reaches for your wrist or your waist. A window that opens wide to the breeze and closes when you choose. Nothing grand. Nothing gilded, just silence, just space. You feel Rosie's hand on your shoulder. She lays a shawl across you, tucks it in with care. She does not speak. After a moment, she turns and climbs the stairs. The cup tips slightly in your hand. You drift, and somewhere deep within the house, something breaks, but for once, it is not you. You are not woken by the usual sounds this morning. Not by the familiar, piercing clang of the breakfast bell that rattles the rafters and calls the house to life. Not by the clipped bark of Madame's voice traveling sharply through the corridors. Not by the rattle of cutlery or the uneven footsteps creaking above as someone shuffles toward the wash basin in search of morning water. No, today, what wakes you is far more startling in its absence, silence, but not the ordinary kind. Not the gentle hush of early hours when sleep still clings to the walls and the girls move softly in shared weariness. Not the peaceful silence of a rare quiet morning. This silence is strange. It is thick and muffled. Like a woolen blanket pulled too tightly around the house. It presses in from all sides, turning the air dense and padded, swallowing the usual signs of life that hum through the floorboards each day. You open your eyes slowly, not yet sure what has changed. Your body stays still for a moment, hesitant, as if to move too quickly would shatter whatever spell has fallen. You sit up with care, feeling the shift in the room, your shawl bunched awkwardly around your shoulders. The edges are tangled and the fabric is still warm from sleep, but you clutch it tighter, wrapping it around your arms as though it might shield you from something not yet seen. Even the light looks different. The curtain, drawn partway, lets in a narrow shaft of morning. But the glow is pale and cold, drained of color. It feels artificial, like a painting of light rather than the real thing. A false morning. A counterfeit dawn. Your head still swims. The fog of sleep clings stubbornly to your skull, and there is a bitter taste on your tongue. The familiar trace of laudanum lingers at the back of your throat, metallic, sour, and dry as iron filings. You swallow, trying to rid your mouth of it, but it stays with you, a quiet reminder of the night before. And then, beneath the hush, you hear something else, not silence after all, a different sound. One that doesn't belong. Voices. Male. Harsh and clipped, not raised in laughter or flirtation but firm, cold, and unfamiliar. Commands, not conversation, and boots, heavy boots, falling in sync like a warning. Not the polished shoes of a gentleman client. Not the furtive shuffle of a late-night visitor sneaking home before light. These are deliberate steps. Authoritative. Loud. The sound of men who walk with purpose, who do not ask permission when they enter a room. The kind of boots that announce power with every strike against the floorboards. You know what is happening before anyone says it. The house is being raided. You do not have time to reason through it. Instinct takes hold. You throw your shift over your head, arms struggling through the sleeves as your fingers tremble. Your skirt follows, dragged upward and twisted at the waist. The laces hang loose, your bodice askew, and your hair is wild across your face. But none of it matters. Because before you can even think about finding your slippers or smoothing the wrinkles from your blouse, the door swings open. It is not Madam, it is not one of the girls, it is not a client, familiar or otherwise, it is a constable. His uniform is pressed. His face unreadable. His jaw locked tight. He scans the room briefly. Then fixes his eyes just past you. Stay put. The words land hard, but you do not stay put, you move. Quiet as a breath, quick as fear. You slip into the hallway after him, your heartbeat a drumbeat behind your ribs. The panic is no longer waiting. It is in full bloom now. It spills out into the corridor like smoke, thick and uncontained. Doors are flung open. Some are forced. You hear the splinter of wood. Voices are raised, high with panic and disbelief. A girl screams. Another sobs behind a locked door. You turn a corner just in time to see a half-dressed man bolt down the staircase, one sock on, one sock missing, shirt open, hair wild. He nearly crashes into the lampstand and mutters a curse as he stumbles down into the entryway and disappears. Eliza is huddled near the wall, crouched low with her knees pulled to her chest. Her long braid has come loose. It's the first time you've seen her hair unbound in weeks. Without her bun and rouge, she looks unfamiliar. Small. Pale. As if a single gust might undo her completely. The hallway is no longer a place of passage. It has become a storm. Girls cry out, men bark orders, and the air itself feels charged with confusion and fear, and then you see Rosie. She stands still, not moving, near the stairwell. She is fully dressed, already powdered, her lips painted in their usual scarlet. Her hair is pinned without flaw. She does not shake. She does not blink. She stands like a statue placed there deliberately, as though daring anyone to ask whether she belongs. She meets your eye only briefly. What's happening? You whisper, your voice barely audible above the noise. Morality squad, she replies. Her voice is flat, almost rehearsed. Looks like someone filed a complaint. You do not know whether to laugh or flee. You want to do both. You glance around at the house. You have never seen it look so brittle. The wallpaper seems thinner. The walls less steady. Here is something the textbooks rarely mention. In Victorian London, a brothel could operate with some measure of freedom, so long as it played the game. So long as Madame paid the right men and the girls kept quiet. So long as the neighbors kept their gossip behind drawn curtains and the officials pretended not to notice. But it took only one complaint. A single whisper to the wrong man. One self-righteous preacher. One reformer with a voice loud enough to echo through Parliament halls. That was all it took to bring it down, and today, someone has spoken louder than Madame's coin purse. You hear her voice from downstairs. Calm, smooth, measured. Speaking to a man with power. A detective, perhaps. You cannot hear the words, but you know the tone. That silken mix of sweetness and calculation. Every syllable is barbed with courtesy, but they are not here for ledgers or receipts. They are here for girls, too young. Too weak. Too quiet. Girls who flinch when asked a question. Girls who hesitate before saying their name. You spot Lizzie, almost hidden behind a wardrobe. Her knees are pulled up under her chin. Her arms are wrapped around herself like armor. Her eyes are wide, glassy. Her lower lip trembles, and her fingers are bone-white from the force of her grip. You step between her and the officer without thinking. No plan. No words. Just a quiet act of presence. You do not speak. You do not explain. You simply take your place. The man walks on. Eliza is not so lucky. She is led down the stairs. Her hands are bound. Her eyes fixed on the floor. Madame follows shortly after, escorted. But not touched. The rest of you are told to return to your rooms. Wait, they say. Wait for a magistrate. No one tells you what that means. You go to Rosie's room instead. So do the others. One by one, the girls drift in, wordless and slow. The walls feel closer than usual. The ceiling lower. The air wet. No one speaks for a long time. Then, finally, Rosie says, "It's happened before." You lift your head. Different house, she adds. Same boots. Same questions. And? You ask, almost afraid of the answer, and I stayed. Because I had nowhere else. When Eliza returns, the sun has already dipped below the roofs. Her wrists are red where the cuffs sat too tight. Her hands tremble. Her voice is gone. They didn't charge her, Rosie tells you quietly. Just gave a warning. Later, Madame walks back in, hat tilted, gloves spotless. Her voice as smooth as cream. 2 days suspension. That's all. Back to work Thursday. And just like that, the house turns back on. It is slow. It is awkward. Like a music box wound after rust has set in. That evening, you sit at your dressing table. You stare into the mirror, the glass warped and silvering at the edges. The rouge pot sits at your elbow. You do not open it. You remember the man with one sock, stumbling like a frightened animal. You remember Lizzie's silence. Eliza's hands. You remember Madame's smile. No one works that night. Instead, the girls gather in the parlor. There are no clients. No tasks. Just a room filled with people who have not left. Someone uncorks a bottle of port. Someone else presses a key on the piano, then stops. You drink, you sing, you do not entertain, you exist, and for one quiet, trembling night, that is enough, a strange detail from history, some brothels kept black books. Ledgers of lies. Names that never visited. Dates that never happened. A fiction, written to protect the truth. You wonder if Madame keeps one tucked beneath her floorboards. You wonder if you are in it. That night, your dreams are filled with the sound of boots. Dozens of them. Marching. Always marching. Corridors stretch too long. Doors stay just out of reach. You wake before dawn. And it is Thursday, the house is open again. You are crouched on the edge of your bed, fingers tugging the worn leather laces of your boots into place, when Rosie appears in the doorway. She leans her shoulder against the frame like she always does when she has something to say that might bruise. "Lavinia's gone," she says. You freeze mid-motion, the second lace hanging limp between your thumb and forefinger. The words take a second to settle, as though your ears need time to believe them. You lift your gaze to the crooked mirror on the wall. It's cracked near the corner. You look at yourself in it, not for answers, but to watch your own face change. Gone. You echo, slowly, as if repeating the word might make it sound less final. "Gone," Rosie says again. Her voice is calm, but her eyes are sharp. She gestures vaguely with her spoon, drawing a loose circle in the air as if to say the details don't matter. As in vanished. Last seen Tuesday night. No note. No goodbye. Didn't pack a bag. Didn't take her savings. Didn't even bother folding her gloves. You turn the laces in your fingers, trying to remember that night. You can't. That makes it worse. You think of Lavinia, her whip-quick wit, her sharp tongue, the way she held herself like someone who knew every room was watching. She was unpredictable, proud, elegant in a way that came from deep habit rather than wealth. Sometimes she made you feel small. Sometimes she made you feel like you could grow teeth. She was not the warmest of women, but she was never invisible. You remember watching her walk with her chin tilted up, like the world should answer to her. You remember mimicking the way she adjusted her sleeves, hoping to borrow even a fragment of that practiced grace. She wouldn't just leave, you murmur, your voice quiet, almost uncertain. "No," Rosie says, voice low and knowing. She'd slam the door. She'd knock over a lamp for good measure. She'd make damn sure we all heard her go. That is how you know something is wrong. The house moves forward that morning, as it always does. Breakfast is served with lukewarm porridge and clumped sugar. Rouge is shared between cracked compacts. Madame passes through the parlor, eyes sharp, lips pursed. The routine spins on, gears catching, wheels turning, but you can feel it. The rhythm is broken, something is off. Eliza stirs her tea too long, watching the spoon go round and round like it might stir away a thought she doesn't want to name. Lizzie is quieter than usual, her hair pulled into a braid that isn't quite straight. There is a new bruise on her arm, faint and pale at the edges. She doesn't mention it, and no one asks. Madame's ledger stays open longer than usual. She writes slower. Her pen scratches with hesitation, and Lavinia's room? Locked. No one says why, no one even acknowledges it, and that, more than anything, tells you everything. You begin to notice what else is gone. Not just Lavinia herself, but the small things. The silver-handled hairbrush that always sat on her dressing table. The photograph of her sister she kept tucked inside the vanity drawer. Her dog-eared copy of Great Expectations, pages marked with lavender ribbons. All missing. Not taken. Not scattered. Removed. Carefully, precisely, as though her presence had been erased by steady hands, the girls whisper in the hallway. Only when Madame is out of earshot. Hushed words passed like contraband between doorframes. Some say Lavinia ran away. Others insist she was taken. One girl, the youngest, swears she saw a blood-stained shawl behind the house, half buried beneath the coal chute. But you have lived here long enough to know the difference between truth and story. Rumors flare brighter, but the truth lies lower, murkier, almost silent. That night, the silence is replaced, a new girl arrives. She is called Clara. She walks in with a smile too wide, perfume that lingers a second too long, and a nervous energy that clings to her like lace. Her shoes are polished, her hands fidget constantly, and her eyes search the room as though trying to decide which part of it is safest. She takes Lavinia's room without asking whose it was before. You watch her place her things on the vanity table, you offer her your spare hairbrush. She thanks you with a grateful look so full of hope that you almost have to look away. You want to warn her. To say something about gloves not folded and names whispered behind locked doors. But the words stick. Because no one warned you, a fact comes to you later. Half remembered from somewhere. A bit of history or maybe a line from Rosie's stories. Disappearances from brothels were not rare. Girls vanished like vapor in the cold. They had no papers. No protections. No families looking. The constables barely noticed. Some escaped. Some didn't. Most were never mentioned again. You start keeping your own list. Not names. Not a diary. Just the things that went missing: Meg's locket, Ivy's boots, Lavinia's laugh, your hope. You write one line each week. Neatly. Quietly. Folded into a book you never lend out. No one knows it's there. That evening, a client asks you a question he probably thinks is charming. Have you ever been in love? He says. Soft, like he's gifting you something, you smile. Just slightly. Not too wide. Once, you say. He smiles back, pleased with the answer. He does not ask for more. When he leaves, you sit in the corner of the room where the lamp burns low and the shadows fall across the carpet like fingers. You listen to the creaks in the floor above. A single tap drips from the wash basin. Somewhere upstairs, Lizzie coughs. You pull your knees to your chest and wonder, in that quiet, if anyone will remember you when you are gone. If anyone will notice. The girls begin sleeping lighter. Shawls folded and ready by the door. Boots never far from reach. Just in case. They don't speak of fear. Not yet. But they are practicing the habits of escape. Rosie sharpens the pin she keeps hidden in her corset lining. Eliza moves her coins again, this time beneath a loose tile in the hearth. Everyone sees her do it. No one mentions it. Madam walks past it all with her usual calm. If she notices the shift, she doesn't say so. One morning, you wake early, the sky is pale, the house is still, you walk down the stairs barefoot, every board familiar beneath your soles. When you reach the front hall, you see it, the door is ajar. Just slightly. A sliver. The kind of opening that invites fog to curl in like smoke. You push the door open and step onto the stoop. The air is damp. The street is empty. No movement. No sound but the rustle of leaves and the creak of the sign above the apothecary swinging in the breeze. You glance left. Then right, no figure disappears into the morning, no footsteps mark the cobblestones, but something is there. In the gutter, where the sludge collects, you spot a torn page of paper. Soaked at the edges. The ink runs a little, but one line is still readable, clear and stubborn through the smear. She was nobody, and yet, she had been everything. You fold it gently and slide it into your stocking. Later that afternoon, Clara pulls you aside. She frowns, twisting her fingers. She wants to know how to say no without saying no. You show her the trick. The way to laugh without amusement. The way to tilt your head and answer a question with a better one. The art of surviving without fighting, and that is when it dawns on you. When the truth sets in like the slow tightening of a stitch, you are no longer the newest girl. No longer the quietest voice. No longer the one they all protect. You have lasted, not fled, not broken, not disappeared, but remained, and in this house, in this place where names are forgotten faster than tea goes cold, that is something. Maybe not everything, but something. You find yourself in the green room again. The candlelight flickers low, barely strong enough to reach the corners of the space. The air is thick tonight, heavier than usual, steeped in the scent of old perfume, burnt oil, and the faint powder of a rouge compact that cracked weeks ago. You sit with your hands folded, blouse half buttoned, your skirt brushing the floor, and that is when it hits you. It does not arrive like a memory, clear and nostalgic. Instead, it seeps in like a draft, quiet and persistent, sliding beneath the door as you reach for the next button on your cuff. A realization, not sudden but undeniable: you have been here over a year. The thought does not stop your hands, but it slows them. You pause with your fingers hovering near your sleeve, blinking as the weight of it settles. Has it truly been that long? You glance down at the blouse you are wearing. You wonder if it is one of the newer ones or simply one of the better kept. The fabric is soft with wear, the hem slightly frayed. You look around the room. Everything is as it has always been. The same mirror stands on the dresser, its frame chipped along the left edge. The same rug, worn to threads near the foot of the chaise. The same crack in the ceiling looms overhead, shaped like a tree that has grown tired and crooked with age, and yet, something has shifted. You feel it within your bones. Beneath your skin, you are not older in the usual sense. The calendar may have moved, but the mirror still gives back a face that changes slowly. No, it is not age. It is something else. A weight. A presence that has built itself inside you, formed by the accumulation of stories, silences, and names you no longer speak. Faces you once knew, now only passing through the veil of your dreams. Outside the window, a familiar sound approaches. The milkman's cart rumbles past the alley, its wheels clattering over uneven stones. The sky is still ink blue, just beginning to soften at the edges. It is barely dawn, and you have worked through another night. Again, there is a stillness in the house now. That rare and precious hour before the city lifts its head and begins to hum. You draw back the curtain no more than an inch and peer out into the fog. There, beneath the last gas lamp on the corner, the lamplighter reaches up and extinguishes the final flame. One soft hiss, and then darkness. He lowers his ladder, tips his hat, and disappears into the fog. It is as if he never existed. You wonder if that will be you someday. If you will slip out of this place like smoke, leaving only a quiet behind. A little less light. A little more silence. Inside, Lizzie is curled in a high-backed chair near the fireplace. Her feet are tucked beneath her, a blanket slipping off her shoulder. A book lies open on her chest, pages splayed like wings. She is asleep. She has survived longer than anyone thought she would. You remember how she used to flinch at every footstep, how her hands used to shake even when she smiled. Now, she laughs more freely. Her hair is longer. Her voice steadier. You helped her reach this version of herself. You taught her the small things that matter. The tilt of the head that softens a refusal. The nod that ends a conversation before it begins. The half laugh that disarms without inviting. You gave her your old corset when hers fell apart. You braided her hair one evening, not because anyone asked, but simply because she needed the comfort. This is what survival has become in this house. Not grand declarations or daring escapes, but quiet, deliberate kindnesses. The victories so small they almost go unnoticed. Yet they matter, and perhaps, just perhaps, that is enough. The house feels different now. The walls hum with a slower rhythm. Madame no longer watches quite so closely. She still carries her ledger, but she no longer sharpens her gaze each time she enters a room. Rosie naps in odd corners, arms crossed and head tilted, pretending she is not asleep. Eliza hums melodies under her breath when she believes no one is near enough to hear, and you you are no longer the one watching, learning, following. You have become the one the new girls glance toward. Not because they believe you can save them, but because your movements carry a rhythm they hope to imitate. A balance. A way forward. Historians often speak of brothel life in terms of damage. They write of the trauma, the rituals of detachment, the strategies for numbing and forgetting. But what they fail to mention is endurance. The miracle of continuing. The quiet, stubborn strength it takes to exist within a world that constantly tries to forget you. You exist. You are still here. That fact is not small. You keep a list now. Not hidden away like a secret, but folded carefully and placed in your pocket. The paper has creases worn from frequent unfolding, from the press of your fingers. It is not a list of debts, it is a list of memory. The night you danced barefoot in the parlor, just for yourself. The orange peel that dried behind your mirror for a week before anyone noticed. The pressed flower Eliza gave you the day Meg passed away, wrapped in tissue paper. The letter you once wrote but never sent, addressed to no one. The name you came close to forgetting, then whispered back into the world. You take the paper out sometimes when the house feels too loud, or when the quiet begins to pulse in your ears. You unfold it slowly, smoothing the edges with care. You read it like prayer. Like proof. Like resistance. There is a story Rosie once told you about a city where girls from the same house formed a secret club. They passed pins to one another, tiny brooches in the shape of bees or violets. Symbols no one else would recognize. Tokens of survival. Proof that they belonged somewhere. You wonder what your symbol would be. Maybe a sewing needle, delicate but sharp. Maybe a matchbook, small and full of fire. Maybe just the curve of your name, written slowly and with reverence across clean paper. The sun is rising now. You can feel it before you see it. The floorboards shift under the warmth. The pigeons begin tapping at the window. You hear the butcher's boy racing past the stoop, always late. Always out of breath. You stand. You stretch. You smooth your skirt with a practiced hand. Your shift has ended. You have made it through another night. One more line drawn in your memory. You will not write it in Madam's ledger. But you will carry it with you, and one day, when your time comes, and you know it will, you will go, not in panic, not in fear, but with certainty. Not today, not yet, but someday, and soon. The gas lamps have all been extinguished. Their glow has faded into the folds of the morning. The shutters are drawn. The footsteps have passed. The laughter has gone quiet. You lie back in your bed, corset loosened, stockings peeled down and tucked beside the chair. The sheets are cool beneath your skin, freshly turned and smelling faintly of lavender and old soap. The house breathes with you. Its heartbeat has slowed. A softness wraps itself around the walls like a lullaby. The voices have gone still. The floor beneath you no longer creaks. Outside, the world carries on without you. Wheels rattle across stone. A dog lets out one bark, then falls silent. A horse shakes its harness and snorts once into the morning air. But here, in this small room where no one is calling your name, there is only stillness. Your hands rest on your stomach. You feel your chest rise and fall. The rhythm is slow and steady. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. Like the ebb and flow of waves that touch the shore and draw away. Like a song without lyrics, only breath. You are not performing, you are not watching, you are not adjusting your voice to please a stranger. You are here, breathing, present, safe, at least for now. The night has ended, and so has this story. Let the fog gather and settle over your thoughts. Let your limbs relax into the mattress. Let your mind drift toward someplace softer. Someplace quiet. A field full of lavender. The tang of orange peel drying on the windowsill. A pressed flower that never crumbles. No corsets, no ledgers, no footsteps approaching your door. Only sleep, only quiet, only you. You made it through the night, and you always do.